This gentleman named Sang Pit is a lawyer, currently racing with a traffic police officer at breakneck speed in broad daylight. After a brief chase, he was cornered by the police officer. The police officer kept knocking on Sang Pit's car door, and despite facing imminent punishment, Sang Pit remained cheerful, intentionally revealing a stack of money outside the car. The police officer, assuming that Sang Pit was attempting to bribe him, immediately refused and sternly took Sang Pit out to resolve the matter, thinking he would take the lawyer to a hidden area without surveillance cameras to receive the money. However, Sang Pit's perplexing behavior indicated that he had no intention of giving money. Seeing this, the police officer became impatient and decided to impose a hefty fine on Sang Pit. It was only when Sang Pit presented his identification and revealed that he was a lawyer that the police officer realized his mistake. He thought that lawyers couldn't do much, so he expected a big gift from Sang Pit. Little did he know that there was a hidden camera installed at the back of Sang Pit's car, which had captured the entire scene of the police officer attempting to accept a bribe. Now, he had to thank the police officer for providing him with such strong evidence. After dominating the situation and unsettling the police officer, Sang Pit left the scene. A phone call came in, indicating that someone was eagerly awaiting his arrival, suggesting that things were quite urgent. At another location in a warehouse, a group of gangsters had gathered, torturing a man who was hanging suspended. Suddenly, Sang Pit burst into the warehouse, taking pictures with his phone right as he stepped out of his car. As the gangsters moved towards him, Sang Pit revealed himself as the lawyer representing the bloodied man. While he was explaining that they would resolve the matter legally, one of the gangsters punched him. Sang Pit remained calm, removed his coat, and began lecturing the gang members on living a righteous life. One of them, holding a knife, approached Sang Pit, but he calmly disarmed him. Sang Pit then had one of his associates present a report documenting the gangsters' tax evasion and years of criminal activities. The gangsters gathered around to read the report, discovering they owed a significant amount in taxes, even beyond what they had taken from Sang Pit's client. Guang Dong, the gang leader, was taken aback. Sang Pit argued that his client had suffered losses of 800 million won, and it was absurd to resort to stealing calendars and paying an additional 2 billion won. Just as Guang Dong was about to attack Sang Pit with a club, a voice rang out. A group of people entered, led by a man named De Wang. Multiple cars rushed into the warehouse. Upon seeing De Wang, Sang Pit respectfully greeted him, while Guang Dong and his gang members were left looking frightened and intimidated. Meanwhile, a trial was taking place, and a woman and her lawyer were anxiously waiting for the verdict. The judge was dismissive of the woman and pronounced a 20-year sentence, despite her actions being in self-defense and protection of her children. She had even suffered a broken rib from the victim's attacks. The 20-year sentence seemed unjust, and her lawyer confronted the judge after the trial. However, the judge repeatedly emphasized that she was a woman and incapable of much. This infuriated the young lawyer, Ha Jae Yi, who punched the judge, resulting in a 6-month suspension. The incident with the judge attracted attention, and despite being afraid of Jae Yi, the judge continued to make hurtful comments. She only threatened him briefly by raising her fist, but not long after, she received news of her dismissal. After returning from the gym, Sang Pit received a delivery from an unknown sender. When he opened it, he found a notebook with a serious and unexpected expression on his face. It appeared to contain crucial information. While on his way to deliver news about the suspect in the murder of the city mayor, Ki Sung, Sang Pit learned that the trial would take place in Ki Sung in 10 days, with Judge Cha Moon-suk presiding as the head judge. Upon hearing this, Sang Pit immediately called Cho Wang, and they met up that evening. Sang Pit explained that he wanted to return to Ki Sung to open a detective agency and investigate his mother's death from years ago. Dae Wang didn't oppose the idea and offered to send some people along with Sang Pit, but he declined, having his own plans for revenge. As Sang Pit drove back to Ki Sung, the thick fog enveloped the road, causing his progress to slow. In this moment, he couldn't help but think of his mother. Before her passing, she had firmly instructed him never to return to Ki Sung, as there was no one trustworthy in that place. At the same time, the young lawyer, Jae Yi, who had been dismissed, was also on a train heading to Ki Sung. She and Sang Pit were heading there simultaneously, but their paths diverged upon arrival. Jae Yi reached the seaside, gazing out at the waves, while Sang Pit made his way to his mother's former office, which had now become a loan office. Seeing Sang Pit dressed in elegance, the owner assumed he had come to borrow money and warmly welcomed him. Sang Pit took a quick tour of the office, which still retained its appearance from years ago, including the desk with his mother's name on it. Sang Pit instructed them to clean up the office, and upon hearing this, the leader among them tried to give him an ultimatum but was swiftly defeated by Sang Pit. In the end, Sang Pit gained control of the group and effectively established the lawyer's office once again. In the meantime, Jae Yi happily returned to her father's side without mentioning her dismissal. Father and daughter enjoyed a meal together, and it became apparent that Jae Yi had a deep admiration for Judge Cha Moon-suk. A few days later, the trial took place, and both Sang Pit and Jae Yi attended. Sang Pit's attitude towards Judge Cha was somewhat peculiar, but regardless, the case was resolved satisfactorily, further elevating the judge's status in the eyes of the public. After the trial, Jae Yi returned home to find chaos. Sang Pit's loan associates were causing a ruckus. It turned out that her father had borrowed some money but hadn't paid it back for a long time, prompting Sang Pit's associates to come demanding payment. Jae Yi looked at the interest rates on the loan agreement and decided to confront the leader of the associates, who happened to be Sang Pit. She argued with him, which infuriated Sang Pit. He brought up the incident where she had punched the judge and mentioned an interest in investigating the woman involved. This made Jae Yi angry, and she punched him in the face. As a result, she was arrested by the police for assault. Meanwhile, at the office, Sang Pit was using his strategic mind to train his loan associates, emphasizing the importance of winning rather than relying on the law. He was determined to make them excellent lawyers. That night, as Sang Pit looked out into the dark city, he couldn't help but remember that fateful and horrifying day. On that fateful rainy night, Sang Pit's mother, Choi Jin-ae, rushed back to the office, clutching a few photographs and trying to show her young son which one was him. Soon after, a group of people surrounded her. The man in charge relentlessly interrogated her about a memory card, but Jin-ae continued to deny any knowledge of it. He circled the office, and upon spotting a child's backpack, he deduced that Jin-ae wasn't alone and immediately started searching for Sang Pit. At that moment, Sang Pit was hiding nearby, listening to the threats. When the man threatened to harm his mother if she didn't hand over the memory card, young Sang Pit rushed out. The man grabbed Sang Pit and threatened to break his mother's neck if she didn't surrender the memory card. Unable to bear the pressure, Jin-ae finally handed it over. With the memory card in his possession, the man made a call to report the situation and inquire about how to proceed with both mother and child. In the midst of everyone's distraction, young Sang Pit quickly swallowed the memory card. The gangster, seeing this, attempted to use a knife to cut it out of him. Jin-ae desperately tried to intervene. In the end, Jin-ae was stabbed right in front of Sang Pit. Before she passed away, she pushed her son away to help him escape. Unfortunately, as he tried to flee, young Sang Pit accidentally bumped into the gangster and was captured. While in the car, young Sang Pit resisted, biting the man's hand, causing the car to swerve violently and ultimately overturn. Seizing the opportunity, young Sang Pit managed to escape. It took young Sang Pit a long time to locate his younger brother, De Wong, who was involved in a fight at the time. He had to wait until De Wong finished the altercation before approaching him. Initially, De Wong was reluctant due to the severed ties between his family and Sang Pit's parents. However, after hearing young Sang Pit recount the tragic events, De Wong's demeanor softened. He embraced Sang Pit gently and provided him with comfort. From that moment on, Sang Pit lived with De Wong. Despite being so young, Sang Pit harbored a fierce determination for revenge, a determination that still burns strongly within him to this day. He continues to safeguard the memory card that his mother fought to protect. The next morning, Sang Pit went to the police station to find Jae Yi. He wanted to interview her for a management position. After a brief conversation, Sang Pit concluded that Jae Yi had passed, joking that the recruitment criteria must be quite lenient. That evening, after being released, Jae Yi sat down to have a drink with her father. He felt guilty for causing his daughter to end up in such a situation, all because of a photography shop. It was also that night when Jae Yi learned that she had been released because Judge Cha Moon-suk had asked her most disliked prosecutor, Kang Yeon-hee, to guarantee her release. The irony of it all left a bitter taste. The next morning, despite her reluctance, Jae Yi had to go to Sang Pit's office for work, just to make ends meet. Quickly, Sang Pit led Jae Yi to a client who happened to be the prime suspect in the murder of Mayor Woo in Kisung City. The prosecutor for the case was none other than Kang Yeon-hee, with Judge Cha Moon-suk presiding. With no reason to refuse, Jae Yi and Sang Pit swiftly went to meet the suspect. Remarkably, the suspect turned out to be the same man who had abducted Sang Pit all those years ago, and the scars from that encounter were still visible on his body. Meanwhile, the shadowy figures had their eyes on Sang Pit's detective agency. During the suspect's interrogation, it was revealed that his lawyer was the renowned attorney Ji Yoo-in-do, who had retired after 25 years as a respected judge to become a prestigious lawyer. Trying to wrest the case away from attorney Ji Yoo posed a significant challenge. Despite this, Sang Pit fearlessly confronted the suspect and eventually convinced him to leave, ending the confrontation, even though it left Jae Yi feeling humiliated. When Jae Yi asked Sang Pit about his true motivation for joining the case, he playfully diverted her attention by taking her out to find food. Eventually, he casually mentioned that he wanted fame and was doing it for publicity. This revelation left Jae Yi hating Sang Pit for his seemingly shallow motivations. At the same time, elsewhere, Judge Cha was secretly meeting with Mr. An Oh-ju. She felt that the position of mayor had been vacant for too long, so she intended to appoint a new one. Mr. An Oh-ju was initially apprehensive, but to his surprise, she wanted to appoint him as the new mayor. The fact that the leader of the gang was willing to bow before Cha Moon-suk spoke volumes, and he obediently followed her instructions. Inside the prison, attorney Ji Yu is having a conversation with Woo Hungman. The lawyer's attitude is very strange, but the police still trust him. The next day, Jae Yi and Judge Cha are sitting next to each other, and Cha Moon-suk is listening to how Jae Yi views the case. She also inquires about Sang Pit. When she senses Jae Yi's doubt about the case, Cha Moon-suk immediately takes her shopping, and the topic of the case is put on hold. At the store, Jae Yi tries on several dresses, all of which look beautiful on her and make her happy. However, she encounters Kang Yeon-hee's mother, who is looking for Cha Moon-suk. Her attitude remains the same, reminiscent of the past when she once stormed into a classroom to physically assault a teacher for not giving Yeon-hee a perfect grade. Back then, Jae Yi had spoken up to help the teacher, and since then, this old woman has held a grudge. Whenever they meet, she hurls insults, regardless of Cha's presence, who is sitting in judgment nearby. Today, Cha Moon-suk had a charity event at an orphanage. There were reporters and a group of foreigners participating, and she appeared enthusiastic, even hugging some of the children. However, immediately after the event ended, she sanitized her hands as if she were looking down on the children. Sang Pit should consider a career in comedy acting. That's what the office guy suggested, but the gang went all out to promote the idea. Even Jae Yi couldn't help but laugh at the thought. It seemed hilariously absurd. However, they still had to proceed with the investigation regardless of the amusing diversion. Sang Pit took Jae Yi to the crime scene for investigation. While Sang Pit was busy taking photos of the scene, the prosecutor arrived, and Kang Yeon-hee's attitude changed dramatically upon seeing Jae Yi. She started taunting Jae Yi, even offering to introduce Sang Pit to a better manager. Initially, Jae Yi had no intention of responding, but Sang Pit unexpectedly stepped in and spoke on her behalf. Yeon-hee was left silently watching as Jae Yi and Sang Pit walked away. Outside, Sang Pit encountered attorney Ji Yu, who threatened him and warned him to follow the rules in Ki Sung and quickly withdraw from the case if he had any sense. After speaking, attorney Ji Yu left. At the same time, Sang Pit had his crew use a flycam to gather information. Two of his crew members controlled the flycam while sharing stories about Sang Pit's legendary status. Meanwhile, as attorney Ji Yu was on the phone with Chairman An, the discreetly placed flying camera outside recorded everything. That evening, Sang Pit stood outside and watched Jae Yi diligently working. Suddenly, he recalled the determined appearance of his mother from years ago. Jin A had also worked tirelessly like this. After several moments, it was the first time that Sang Pit and Jae Yi shared the same thought. Woo Hungman might not be the real culprit after all. The next morning, the preliminary trial took place, where a plethora of evidence was presented to incriminate Woo Hungman. However, attorney Ji Yu remained silent throughout, clearly showing no intention of defending or assisting the police and Woo in any way. After the trial, attorney Gu's indifference was condemned by Judge Cha, who didn't accuse him of irresponsibility but instead criticized him for feigning incompetence. This raised concerns about what might happen if Woo Hungman decided to change lawyers. In her office, Judge Cha even forced attorney Ji Yu to kneel and bow his head in repentance. Today, Sang Pit visited Woo Hungman again and showed him a video clip captured by the flycam. The video revealed an implicit agreement between attorney Ji Yu and Chairman An to frame Woo Hungman for the crime. When Detective Woo watched the video, he became furious, but he also grew more suspicious. Despite the evidence, Woo Hungman still didn't trust Sang Pit, as he couldn't believe anyone would willingly dive into murky waters like he did. In the end, he refused to cooperate and walked away. Woo Hungman couldn't endure life in prison, and someone attempted to kill him there. Meanwhile, Jae Yi continued to struggle with her thoughts. When the pressure became too much, she sought solace by talking to her father. As she looked at the impending rain, she remembered the fateful rainy day from years ago when she wanted to buy a trumpet for her class, but her mother went instead due to heavy rain and never returned. She became a lawyer to search for her mother, believing that she was still alive. As the rain poured heavily, Sang Pit visited Woo Hungman again. He informed him that his wife was in a special care room, trying to make him trust him. When Woo Hungman lost his patience and wanted to know what Sang Pit wanted, Sang Pit slowly revealed his true identity as the boy from back then. Woo Hungman was in shock, and Sang Pit intended to take him out and personally kill him. Afterward, Sang Pit stood outside Jae Yi's photo studio, watching as her father and daughter entered the house together. Just then, Detective Woo called and agreed to let Sang Pit become his lawyer. He was getting closer to his revenge. Under the pouring rain, Sang Pit drank alone on the street, collapsing. De Wong arrived and took him back to the office, but Sang Pit refused his help, determined to seek revenge with his own hands. At the same time, news of Woo Hungman changing lawyers to Sang Pit reached the ears of Ah Oh Ju, who immediately started planning his countermove. On the morning of the trial, Guangdong blocked Jae Yi's path and had someone take her away, assuming she was Sang Pit's girlfriend. As the trial was about to begin and Jae Yi was still missing, Sang Pit grew uneasy and called her. On the other end, Guangdong's voice came through, demanding that Sang Pit come to rescue his girlfriend. However, Sang Pit remained clear-headed, realizing that Jae Yi was not his girlfriend but his manager, so he refused to intervene. Guangdong, furious and looking for revenge, scoffed at Sang Pit's response. Just over 2 minutes later, Sang Pit called again and told Guangdong to send the address. He changed his mind and decided to rescue Jae Yi. He left his crew behind to ensure that the trial didn't proceed. Sang Pit then found Jae Yi's location, dealt with the thugs, and was about to untie her when Guangdong struck him with a bottle. Fortunately, Jae Yi reacted quickly and helped Sang Pit subdue the attacker. They quickly fled the scene. Inside the car, Sang Pit's bleeding wound caught Jae Yi's attention, and she used a cloth to stop the bleeding. Her caring gesture made Sang Pit happy. From the beginning, he had intentionally approached Jae Yi, but her personality required him to take strong measures to assist her. It turned out that Jae Yi's mother had bravely obstructed Detective Wu's pursuit back then, allowing Sang Pit to escape. Their circumstances were similar, and now they were united in their fight. The next step for both of them was to fight together. In the meantime, director Tae, following orders, pretended to be a defense attorney. When he was about to be exposed, he brought his accomplices in to create chaos, disrupting the proceedings to the point where it was almost impossible to continue. Seeing the chaos, Judge Cha wanted to leave but was stopped and had no choice but to sit quietly. Director Tae grabbed a fire extinguisher and sprayed it around in panic. Amid the smoke, Sang Pit and Jae Yi appeared. Sang Pit stared at Judge Cha intently, remembering that he had seen her with a group of thugs in the past and she was closely tied to his mother's death. After entering, Sang Pit slowly walked up to Judge Cha and reluctantly introduced himself. The trial had barely begun when they had to pause for Sang Pit to tend to his injury. With a bleeding head, how could he proceed with a defense? At the very start, he slapped the prosecutor's face hard when they presented a video showing a male judge secretly filming under a girl's skirt on a bus. This damaged the judge's reputation, so Sang Pit requested a replacement, even suggesting changing Judge Cha because she wasn't strict enough or quietly allowed such behavior. Sang Pit's arguments left Judge Cha with no room for counter-arguments. She eventually made a decision that if the video was authentic, she would remove the accused judge from the panel. But within 5 minutes, Kong Yi and He stood up and accused Sang Pit of orchestrating the disruption with his detective office colleagues. Sang Pit was immediately arrested, and the trial came to a halt. The detectives from his office were ecstatic about the situation. Kong Yi and He couldn't help but mock Jae Yi for her seemingly clueless attorney, but Jae Yi didn't let it bother her. She cheerfully left to prepare for the next part of the trial. The news of Bong Sang Pit's safe arrival at the trial reached Chairman An, who was furious and called Guangdong. Despite Guangdong's unimpressive appearance and the fact that he couldn't even fight back against a lawyer, An Oh-ju stabbed him in the thigh with a knife. The pain, the inability to cry out, and the searing sensation left Guangdong speechless. The only way out was to reveal the backing behind Sang Pit to An Oh-ju. Chairman An had no immediate reaction and only stated that he would assign Guangdong a different task, advising him not to cause any more trouble. Not long after, An Oh-ju received 2 anonymous packages. Upon opening them, he found incriminating evidence against himself and a piece of rock. He was deeply shocked, realizing that someone was deliberately threatening him, likely aware that he was about to run for mayor and was using this information against him. He decided to wait until he took office as mayor to easily resolve the situation. Meanwhile, Sang Pit and his gang in prison appeared to be enjoying themselves, behaving as if they were on vacation. One day during mealtime, Sang Pit and his crew sat next to a man named Oh In-chul, the head of the finance department in Ki-sung City. Oh In-chul controlled the city's finances, making Mayor Lee Young-soo seem insignificant by comparison. Sang Pit had gone to great lengths to get into prison to meet Oh In-chul personally, but the man's attitude toward the lawyer didn't seem too friendly. After exchanging a few words, Oh In-chul left, and Sang Pit watched him intently, suggesting that he might have another plan in mind. Outside, Jae Yi decided to meet Judge Cha Moon-suk on her own. She wanted to ask her to extend the trial proceedings, as Sang Pit was still unable to continue his defense. Judge Cha Moon-suk only looked at Jae Yi and asked why she, as a lawyer, couldn't handle it herself. Hearing this, Jae Yi was left speechless. Later, she went to the prison to find Sang Pit. At first, it seemed like she was about to scold him, but to everyone's surprise, she praised Sang Pit for exposing the wrongdoing of the judge, saying he did an excellent job. As they locked eyes, Sang Pit acknowledged that Jae Yi was indeed a remarkable lawyer, and he believed she would do well. This made Jae Yi very happy. After returning home, Jae Yi continued to think about the words Sang Pit had said to her. His trust and encouragement gave her newfound motivation. That night, Sang Pit was also reminiscing about Jae Yi. He had been secretly watching her for a long time and had even sent her a secret bouquet of flowers on her graduation day. The image of Jae Yi's mother from back then always haunted him, and he cherished the debt of gratitude he owed her. The next morning, Jae Yi went to the hospital to find the wife of Detective Wu. Before leaving, she ran into Chairman An as he was coming out. Seeing Detective Wu's wife, Jae Yi recalled her father's words about how Wu Hungman had taken care of his wife for 5 years. She couldn't believe someone like that could be a murderer. When Detective Wu's wife saw Jae Yi, she immediately pleaded for her help, believing her husband was innocent. Meanwhile, Sang Pit continued to approach Oh and Chul, despite the latter's constant hostility. Sang Pit had figured out that Oh and Chul had deliberately sued himself to get into prison, a way for him to survive. However, Sang Pit questioned whether it was truly safe in prison, which made Oh and Chul think twice. Being a judge had its perks, and Judge Cha Moon-suk even had time for relaxation and massages. Her male secretary, who happened to be Kong Yeon-hee's mother, was now boldly accepting various tasks, from running away from the law to hiding assets. These unscrupulous acts included using an orphaned child to manage a company. The male secretary often complained openly in front of Judge Cha Moon-suk, much to her annoyance. Judge Cha Moon-suk sipped her water slowly and calmly instructed her male secretary to shut up, clearly showing her anger. Meanwhile, in prison, Sang Pit had someone beat up Oh and Chul and then brought his gang to rescue him. Wu Hungman witnessed this and was furious at being tricked by Sang Pit. After being rescued by Sang Pit, Oh and Chul finally revealed what he knew. He didn't have information about Detective Wu, but he had insights into Mayor Lee's death. An Oh-ju killed Mayor Lee because of the Golden City project, which had collapsed 18 years ago. Afraid that Mayor Lee would hinder his plans, An Oh-ju took matters into his own hands. After explaining everything, Oh and Chul mentioned that he would die if he left prison, so he wanted nothing to do with Sang Pit anymore and left. With the inside scoop from Oh and Chul, Jae Yi continued her efforts to gather evidence for the case. She even met with Wu Hungman to persuade him to speak the truth. On the day Mayor Lee died, Wu Hungman was with Chairman Kong. However, Chairman Kong had no intention of testifying on Wu Hungman's behalf. After meeting with Detective Wu, Jae Yi immediately went to see Chairman Kong. Here, she learned that Detective Wu had clashed with Chairman Kong on the day of the incident, which was why he had refused to testify. Jae Yi's attempts to persuade Chairman Kong verbally failed, and she was eventually asked to leave. In a last-ditch effort, she brought Detective Wu's wife to meet Chairman Kong. Using psychological tactics, Jae Yi appealed to Chairman Kang's sense of guilt for falsely accusing others. Eventually, under the guidance of Jae Yi and the plea from Detective Wu's wife, Chairman Kong seemed to soften his stance and appeared willing to testify. At the same time, Chairman An began to take action as he prepared for his mayoral campaign. He assigned Guang Dong the task of campaign propaganda. Guang Dong was overjoyed and expressed his gratitude to An Oh-ju. Finally, the day arrived when Sang Pit and his friends were released from prison. Jae Yi came to pick them up, and instead of preparing a grand welcome, she drove them to the beach and served them instant black bean noodles. Sang Pit was about to express his appreciation for Jae Yi's thoughtful gesture when she suddenly pressed his head into the bowl of noodles. The others followed suit, dunking their faces into their noodle bowls. Amidst the hilarious chaos, Jae Yi watched them with a hearty laugh. While everyone else enjoyed their time at the beach, Jae Yi and Sang Pit stayed on the shore, discussing the case. They knew that the real battle was about to begin. Before the trial, Sang Pit approached Detective Wu and revealed the true mastermind behind the scenes, which left Wu Hungman in despair. On the day of the trial, An Oh-ju also attended. During the trial, Sang Pit presented witnesses and evidence related to Chairman Kong. The prosecutor vigorously challenged everything, leading to heated arguments between both sides. Judge Cha halted the trial temporarily to verify the authenticity of the evidence. An Oh-ju left the courtroom, as his assistant had an important task to fulfill. Meanwhile, Chairman An was no match for Sang Pit's cunning. Sang Pit, aware of Oh-ju's plan, planted a spy among his associates to track Oh-ju's movements. After the trial concluded, Sang Pit and Jae Yi immediately began following the assistant's trail. Trong Fong Tae found a suitable location to record the assistant's actions. This assistant was looking for a skilled border crosser, suggesting involvement in illegal activities. Another of Chairman An's assistants was also searching for someone to assist in illegal border crossings, showing signs of criminal intent. Once the assistant they were tracking left, Sang Pit and his 2 associates headed to locate this individual. Sang Pit had his gang hang the middleman upside down outside. At first, he resisted talking, but his fear forced him to confess. Chairman An wanted him to send someone to China today. The middleman only had a photo of that person, not knowing their identity. Sang Pit took the photo and examined it for a while. Just then, a man matching the photo arrived and knocked on the middleman's door. They exchanged a glance, realizing the resemblance. The man immediately ran away, with Sang Pit and his crew chasing after him. They had a long chase, with Jae Yi waiting outside. She seized the opportunity to open the car door, causing the man to fall. Both parties engaged in a fierce fight in a tunnel under the railway. Jae Yi could only watch, and just when Sang Pit apprehended the man, who was forcing him to confess to the mayor's murder, a train approached. They separated as the train passed by, and the man held a knife to Jae Yi, using her as a hostage. Sang Pit offered to let him injure her slightly if he'd confess, threatening to kill him if he didn't. As the tunnel's lights flickered, Sang Pit closed in on the man. He managed to disarm the man and wrestle him down, possibly killing him right there. After releasing his grip, the man confessed, admitting that Chairman An had given the order. Soon after, another train approached. Sang Pit pulled Jae Yi aside, but the man jumped onto the railway, seemingly attempting suicide to hide the truth. Witnessing this, Jae Yi was filled with fear, standing frozen, her face drained of color. Sang Pit quickly led Jae Yi away as she was overcome with fear. Eventually, they reached the hospital. While Jae Yi was trying to rest, the police arrived to take their statements. Jae Yi found it difficult to deal with this intrusive detective, who seemed more interested in framing people than gathering evidence. Sang Pit remained calm, but Jae Yi was growing increasingly frustrated with the situation. She told the detective that if he wanted a statement, he should bring a court-issued warrant, otherwise, they should leave. As they were leaving, they ran into Yi and He, who accused Sang Pit of stealing the victim's phone. Before Sang Pit could respond, Jae Yi defended him, expressing her belief that he wasn't a thief. She then casually left, paying no further attention to Yi and He. Later that day, while the two siblings were out, they unexpectedly encountered An Oh-ju. Sang Pit approached Oh-ju and told him that the real killer had revealed the mastermind before dying. Oh-ju, however, dismissed this, believing that the words of a dying person were not trustworthy. He continued to stare at Sang Pit, and the way Sang Pit looked back at him left Jae Yi feeling uneasy. That evening, Sang Pit escorted Jae Yi back home. They were invited inside by Jae Yi's father, who shared stories about Jae Yi's mother. It made Jae Yi realize that she needed to look at Sang Pit from a different perspective. Afterward, Sang Pit handed a phone to Tae, his team leader, and asked him to unlock it. He revealed that he had truly stolen the phone and wanted to investigate it further. On the other side, An Oh-ju arranged for someone to take care of the border crossing broker by the sea. His secretary, Nam, constantly fueled the fire, speaking ill of Chairman An, to see if Judge Cha would change her mind about appointing Oh-ju as the mayor. Judge Cha Moon-suk, however, paid no attention to Nam's rants. Choi Dae-wung himself came to meet Sang Pit, and while they were discussing An Oh-ju, Jae Yi entered. Choi Dae-wung left as soon as he saw her. Jae Yi, curious about the relationship between Sang Pit, Choi Dae-wung, and Judge Cha, asked Sang Pit for an explanation. However, Sang Pit just smiled and didn't reveal anything, leaving Jae Yi wondering. Meanwhile, An Oh-ju was furious that Choi Dae-wung had gotten involved in Ki-sung due to the small witness case. That night, Gwang-dong dealt with the troublesome witness, reporting back to An Oh-ju to earn some money. However, he didn't know that Oh-ju wouldn't leave any living evidence. After committing the murder, Oh-ju attended a party with government officials and remained in high spirits. Nam, the secretary, continued his relentless attacks on An Oh-ju, not holding back his disdain for anyone. Chairman An distributed money to everyone as gifts, each contained in a suitcase, while maintaining his loyalty to Judge Cha Moon-suk. This loyalty was evident, and his assistant, Nam, had nothing more to say. That night, An Oh-ju helped Judge Cha Moon-suk stack a huge amount of money into a safe. He promised that when the Golden City project was launched, he would fill 3 or 4 similar safes for her. While they were talking, An Oh-ju knelt down to beg Judge Cha to help him consolidate his power at the fish market. However, Judge Cha Moon-suk rejected his request, expressing her disgust for the fishy smell there. Even though he tried to plead further, her resolute attitude silenced him. He quietly stood up, and Cha Moon-suk warned him not to think of himself as her powerful right hand. As An Oh-ju sat in the car on his way back, he closed his eyes to relax. The driver received a call from the assassin's phone, and it was Sang Pit calling from the car behind. An Oh-ju instructed the driver to answer the call, and Sang Pit on the other end only informed him that someone had retrieved the phone before ending the call, leaving a hint of threat in the air. The next day, in the courtroom meeting, Judge Cha called Sang Pit to inform him that the evidence had been rejected. Even the video accusing the other judge was not recognized, and the trial board remained unchanged. Out of the 4 people present, 3 sided with each other to reject Sang Pit's opinions. He expressed his thoughts but was accused of intentionally attacking the judge. Cha Moon-suk even threatened to have him arrested, but Sang Pit remained calm and promised to present evidence that she couldn't deny in the next trial. Outside the courtroom, Sang Pit intentionally revealed part of the truth to prosecutor Kong Yi and He wanted her to know who her real enemy was. Meanwhile, Sang Pit received news that Jae Yi was going alone to find Woo Hungman to gather information. He immediately rushed to the prison camp to find her. When Sang Pit arrived, Hungman was talking about Cha Moon-suk Moon-suk in a negative light. Sang Pit quickly intervened to prevent him from saying more. Hung Man was bewildered, unaware that Jae Yi hadn't learned anything yet. Sang Pit hurriedly pulled her out. Under Jae Yi's skeptical gaze, Sang Pit explained that the judge she knew was just wearing a mask, and everything she saw was fake. Then, Jae Yi was approached by a police officer named Kong Jang-soo, who had been following her mother's case for years. He was a dedicated detective. After talking to him, Jae Yi and Sang Pit went for a walk along the beach. Jae Yi told him that Cha Moon-suk was like a mother figure to her, and if he wanted her to believe those things, he needed to provide convincing evidence. But for now, she couldn't believe it. Though their conversation had a hint of tension, they still enjoyed their meal together. At the same time, the police had found the body of the witness who had been bribed and handled by Guangdong. Despite Kong Jang-soo's efforts to investigate, others believed it was a suicide case. The body was found near a known suicide spot in the area. There was also a death note found nearby, which strongly indicated the cause of suicide. Therefore, Jang-soo couldn't dispute this. He returned to his office and retrieved a stack of Jin A's lawyer files. Inside, there was a missing persons flyer for Jae Yi's mother. For many years, he had been haunted by that case. That night, after returning home, both Sang Pit and Jae Yi were lost in thought, each with their own emotions. The next morning, Sang Pit was preparing to investigate the world of assassins for Chairman An, but Jae Yi stopped him. She wanted to go with them. Initially, he hadn't planned for her to accompany them, fearing for her safety, but she insisted and opened the car door herself to wait inside. Eventually, Jae Yi noticed that Sang Pit's group was investigating the assassin based on the call history of the hitman's phone. She discovered that he had stolen the phone and scolded him for it. Sang Pit told her to quickly get used to his style. A while later, they arrived at the location pointed out by the informant. They saw the informant talking to a woman, whom he introduced as his mother. Jae Yi helplessly told the informant about his mother's real identity, but Sang Pit ordered his men to stand down. However, they couldn't anticipate that the middleman would suddenly get into his car and flee. Sang Pit's men chased after him. He drove recklessly, even crashing into Sang Pit's car and then swerving into oncoming traffic. Sang Pit didn't stop and continued to chase the middleman. They both kept chasing each other until they reached a narrow road, where they eventually collided with an oncoming truck. Sang Pit didn't stop and forced the middleman to swerve to the side to avoid a head-on collision, resulting in both cars being severely damaged. Meanwhile, on the other side, An Oh-ju's assistant reported about Bong Sang Pit's background. When he learned that Sang Pit was the child from back then, he immediately recalled the past. For many years, Hung Man had deceived him, and for 18 years, that kid had been alive and had even returned to Ki-sung, which made him chuckle with irony. Next was the opening ceremony for the bronze statue of the great local judge, Cha Byung-ho. Judge Cha Moon-suk delivered a touching speech, and the entire hall was silent until An Oh-ju burst in. He shouted slogans and called for an election, which infuriated Judge Cha, but she couldn't scold him right there. Just when it seemed like that was the only incident, Sang Pit entered, accompanied by the middleman assassin. He stepped forward and loudly announced to everyone that the middleman assassin had killed Mayor Lee. This caused a commotion in the hall. An Oh-ju and Judge Cha quickly left for the upper floor, and after delivering the message, Sang Pit followed them. Jae Yi, who was trailing behind and trying to stop him, saw Sang Pit looking at her with eyes that seemed different from usual. She couldn't utter a word and just watched in silence. Meanwhile, Cha Moon-suk was upstairs trying to admonish An Oh-ju. She had instructed him not to cause any trouble, but he still did it. His actions irritated her, and Sang Pit's actions were even more infuriating. Hearing An Oh-ju talk about Sang Pit's background both shocked and angered her. She ordered An Oh-ju to leave first, and she remained inside the courtroom, seemingly composed. Sang Pit approached her and initiated a conversation. Although she didn't invite him, he believed that the one who comes uninvited is the main character. The two of them engaged in a lengthy dialogue. At first, she pretended not to know anything, but as time went on, her sinister intentions became clearer. She remarked that Sang Pit resembled his mother, brave and resourceful. Sang Pit confidently asserted that he would be the first to charge her with a crime. Cha Moon-suk chuckled and left. Everything they had been discussing since the recent incident was overheard by Jae Yi without missing a word. She watched Cha Moon-suk pass by her with tears in her eyes and an unbelieving expression. After the commotion that day, Sang Pit and his crew returned to their office, celebrating happily, while Jae Yi left with a heavy heart and a troubled expression. By the harbor, Sang Pit sat beside Jae Yi and explained to her about the actions of Cha Moon-suk and her father in the past. However, Jae Yi had always regarded Cha Moon-suk as her mother, making it difficult for her to accept those facts. Sang Pit had no choice but to find a way to reveal Cha Moon-suk's true nature to her as soon as possible. In the meantime, An Oh-ju brought Cha Moon-suk to a restaurant he frequently visited. Inside, there was a photo of the revered Chairman An Byung-ho hanging on the wall. Chairman An held great respect for him. Cha Moon-suk poured a glass of wine for An Oh-ju, filling it to the brim, and then she spilled the entire bottle over his head. An Oh-ju immediately knelt down, begging her for forgiveness. However, the only one she could ever forgive in this world was herself. After that incident, Jae Yi became more somber. She held onto the childhood photo for a long time, recalling the day when she went outside in search of her mother. It was pouring rain, and a small child had to wander alone. Fortunately, Cha Moon-suk came by and brought her back home. Since then, she had held Cha Moon-suk in high regard, and her father had admired her as well. Regarding the events of the statue unveiling day, Jae Yi's father was also present. He couldn't accept Sang Pit's actions and expressed his intent to sell their photography studio to repay Sang Pit's debt. He didn't want his daughter to have any more dealings with someone like Sang Pit. Jae Yi was deeply moved by her father's concern for her. The next day, Jae Yi went to the courthouse to meet with Judge Cha. They sat together on a bench and had a conversation. Cha Moon-suk pretended to be polite and asked Jae Yi if she thought using the law as a means of punishment was a privilege. She mentioned that, for her, it felt like a form of punishment because the more people she sentenced, the more enemies she gained. She even suggested that Bong Sang Pil might be one of those people, which was why he had caused trouble. Cha Moon-suk went so far as to give Jae Yi a business card for a different office and suggested she work there. An Oh-ju's campaign efforts for Guangdong were indeed effective. He utilized social media to spread the word, even filming videos of An Oh-ju eating at local eateries to connect with the common people. He hired people from social media, and the response was significant. While Guangdong was passionately discussing the work An Oh-ju had done, Sang Pit burst into the office. He came to greet An Oh-ju and handed him the assassin's phone, but An Oh-ju remained calm and later instructed Guangdong to dispose of the phone. In the afternoon, as Jae Yi was reflecting on Judge Cha's words by the seaside, Sang Pit arrived. He briefed her about some developments at the courthouse, and there were 2 more court sessions where he wanted the intermediary to reveal the mastermind behind it all. The next court session came quickly, and Jae Yi and Sang Pit prepared for battle. Surprisingly, the intermediary attended the session as a witness, not as a defendant, which raised concerns for Hungman. The trial began, and Sang Pit asked a series of questions to the intermediary. Some of his questions were opposed by Prosecutor Kong. Even Judge Cha cautioned Sang Pit to ask questions calmly and seriously, but Sang Pit's intention was not to receive answers from him. Outside the courtroom, Sang Pit's gang successfully brought the intermediary's mother to the scene. Seeing his mother, the intermediary started to worry. When Sang Pit and Jae Yi met with Hungman earlier, he had claimed that the intermediary had nothing left to lose. However, Sang Pit was determined to protect something precious to him, and that was his mother, who was unaware of her son's criminal activities. During the trial, the intermediary reluctantly revealed that An Oh-ju was the mastermind. The trial concluded, and the verdict would be delivered in the next hearing. Sang Pit looked at the intermediary and told Jae Yi that everyone had someone they wanted to protect. The intermediary wanted to protect his mother, and Sang Pit couldn't protect his own. An Oh-ju being mentioned in the trial made his election campaign more challenging. For now, Sang Pit's life was less important to him than running for office, so he remained safe. Sang Pit's actions during the trial seemed to have changed Prosecutor Kang's perspective, prompting her to visit him. She informed Sang Pit that An Oh-ju's secretary had gone missing, which raised suspicions within her investigation team. Sang Pit assured Kong that even if her team failed, he would ensure that she could protect justice. On the other hand, Jae Yi, after her conversation with Judge Cha and sensing something amiss in Hungman's words and Sang Pit's behavior, decided to investigate on her own. First, she went to see Hungman, who revealed that the mastermind behind An Oh-ju was indeed Cha Moon-suk. Then, she visited an old bookstore and learned from the enthusiastic owner about the human rights lawyer who had committed suicide and her missing child. Jae Yi returned to her office and tried to inquire with Director Tae, but received no useful information. She then turned her attention to Sang Pit's gang members, discovering that they were all connected to that particular law office. When one of the gang members was about to reveal more, Director Tae intervened with a strange attitude, fueling Jae Yi's suspicions. Jae Yi conducted an online search about Choi Jin-ae and realized that the day the human rights lawyer Jin-ae committed suicide was also the day her mother disappeared. After watching something online, Jae Yi immediately left the room, prompting Director Tae to check her search history. However, Sang Pit didn't answer his phone at that moment because he was with Jae Yi's father, who made it clear that he didn't want his daughter working with him. Jae Yi sought out Kong Jang-soo at the police station, seeing his continuous efforts in an unsolved case. After meeting with Jae Yi, Kong Jang-soo went back to his desk and retrieved a folder of documents left behind by lawyer Choi Jin-ae. Fortunately, it was a copy, as the original documents had disappeared. Kong Jang-soo had never believed that Choi Jin-ae's death was a suicide because he knew she wouldn't leave her young child behind. Sang Pit swiftly went to find Hungman after receiving the extensive information from Prosecutor Kong, but he was denied access. An Oh-ju had arrived before him and showed Woo Hungman a video recording that revealed the fabrication of evidence framing him. Witnessing this, Detective Woo became frightened. An Oh-ju threatened Woo Hungman, offering safety in exchange for his cooperation. Later, Woo Hungman received a call from the hospital, where his wife revealed that An Oh-ju had paid her medical bills. This persuaded Detective Woo not to meet Sang Pit. Through this trip, Jae Yi learned about the relationship between Sang Pit and Detective Woo, as well as the fact that Sang Pit's return to Ki Sung was a high-stakes gamble for his life. After discovering these details, Jae Yi left. Detective Woo, seeing her departure, immediately called Sang Pit and advised him not to trust anyone, especially those in Ki Sung. However, Sang Pit had deep trust in Jae Yi, having observed her for an extended period. Each time he saw her, it reminded him of the past events, making it difficult to forget. That evening, An Oh-ju visited the detective agency to meet Sang Pit. He casually mentioned Sang Pit's mother's death, provoking Sang Pit's anger. Sang Pit grabbed An Oh-ju by the collar, glaring at him with resentment. An Oh-ju taunted Sang Pit, suggesting that he could manipulate the legal system as well. After An Oh-ju left, he went to see Cha Moon-suk, appearing subservient in front of Judge Cha and awaiting her reprimand. While Sang Pit was wandering the harbor with a heavy heart, Jae Yi was at the office contemplating his words and actions from earlier. When Sang Pit returned, he found Jae Yi sitting in his workspace, and he, with a heavy heart, told her she didn't need to work overtime. Jae Yi stared at him intently, mentioning that this room held many secrets. She then approached a small rotating statue and turned it gently. Images from her past started to appear on the screen. The day her mother disappeared was the same day Sang Pit's mother had taken her own life, and Jae Yi wanted to hear Sang Pit explain. Seeing that Jae Yi had gone to such lengths to investigate, Sang Pit no longer hid anything. He explained everything to her. As Jae Yi listened to Sang Pit's words and looked at the photos on the projection, tears began to fall. It was as if she couldn't accept the truth. Jae Yi rushed out to the seashore and sat there, gazing into the distance. Sang Pit hurriedly followed her, trying to comfort her in every way. The two of them sat together, drank wine, and watched the fireworks. Late at night, Sang Pit carried Jae Yi back to the office, tucked her in, and gently stroked her face, comforting the vulnerable girl. Jae Yi found Sang Pit lying on the couch, without a blanket. She took care of him, covered him with a blanket, and then left. But Sang Pit hadn't slept at all. He had stayed awake all night. Even Chief Tae worried about his well-being. The reason Sang Pit couldn't sleep was that he still had a question he didn't know how to answer when it came to Jae Yi. Meanwhile, Prosecutor Kong was struggling with her investigation. Sang Pit's words had made her doubt her subordinates. She was making a real effort to investigate, unaware of the deeper story. On the other hand, An Oh-ju, despite his meticulous preparations, found himself in second place in the election. He mocked his secretary, saying that he wasn't afraid of losing the lawsuit because he had Prosecutor Kang's son on his side. But mentioning his secretary's daughter infuriated him, and he scolded An Oh-ju before leaving. For her, her daughter was a precious treasure, and she couldn't stand the thought of someone like An Oh-ju talking about her child. After learning about everything, Jae Yi started going through her old photo album and retraced her mother's steps to places where she had taken pictures. She arrived at a rundown area, and each scene reminded her of the photos her mother had taken. After observing her surroundings, she was drawn to the noise outside, where An Oh-ju was campaigning. His words were more insincere than ever, and seeing the crowd of his supporters made Jae Yi bitterly smile to herself. She left the scene and began walking along the coastline. Suddenly, Sang Pit appeared behind her, and the two of them walked side by side. Sang Pit explained that his purpose in returning to Ki Sung was both for revenge and to help Jae Yi uncover the truth. When she asked how he knew about her mother, Sang Pit hesitated but eventually found the courage to speak. He told her about the day her mother had saved him. Jae Yi looked at him expectantly and asked where her mother was. However, Sang Pit didn't know how to answer, and he remained silent. Jae Yi didn't press him further, saying she would find out for herself. So, Jae Yi went to the prison alone to meet Woo Hungman. She asked him about the events from 18 years ago, and initially, he pretended not to know. Jae Yi kept reminding him of that day and asked about the woman who was arrested. At first, Hungman continued to play dumb, but when he learned that the woman was Jae Yi's mother, he fell silent, his expression full of guilt, and eventually apologized. Today was another rainy day. Sang Pit stood on the office balcony, gazing at the rain, while Jae Yi returned with a heavy heart. She embraced Sang Pit from behind, seeking solace for herself. He could hear her crying and turned around to look at Jae Yi, full of affection. They shared heartfelt hugs and kisses, reaffirming their promise to overcome everything together. The next morning, Jae Yi woke up, and beside her was Sang Pit, still tightly holding her. She smiled with happiness, got up, and prepared for a new workday. As she was heading downstairs to make coffee for him, Kum Ya, the younger sister of one of Sang Pit's friends, came to visit. She had come to demand money from her brother but was immediately captivated upon seeing Sang Pit. She expressed her desire to stay and work there. However, before anything could happen, her older brother quickly pulled her away. Watching these two siblings, Sang Pit and Jae Yi couldn't help but burst into laughter. Afterward, they walked together along the beach, welcoming the waves crashing onto the shore. In that moment, they felt like they were letting go of their grudges and embracing joy. Sitting by the seaside, they confided in each other, and Jae Yi leaned on Sang Pit's shoulder affectionately. Now, they were more united than ever before. An Oh-ju was at his campaign office when he received a call from Hung Man in prison. Detective Wu was on the line, wanting to meet with him to discuss something. An Oh-ju assumed that Hung Man had finally given in and decided to meet him, so he headed to the prison. Meeting with Chairman An, Detective Wu didn't say much but borrowed his phone to make a call to Sang Pit. He mentioned that Chairman An had a video that could help him get out of prison and asked if Sang Pit could assist him even without the video. Once Sang Pit confirmed his willingness to help, Detective Wu immediately turned against An Oh-ju. Despite being threatened by Chairman An, Detective Wu remained unfazed, as he was a former detective himself. It seemed that the meeting between Jae Yi and Detective Wu had caused him to reconsider his intentions. Thinking about the fabricated evidence, Jae Yi immediately thought of someone. She and Sang Pit went to visit Investigator Min, exchanged some pleasantries, and subtly mentioned the video that Chairman An had shown Hung Man. Based on his reaction, they were almost certain that he was the one who had fabricated the evidence. Just a bit of intimidation, and he rushed to An Oh-ju to spill the beans, resulting in An Oh-ju giving him a thorough beating. On the other hand, Sang Pit and Jae Yi met with Hung Man, who described the video and then distributed tasks to his subordinates. In the video that Hung Man had watched, there was a truck, which was a crucial point that Sang Pit wanted. He needed the truck's dashcam footage. Suddenly, someone entered the frame, and it was Kum Ya, who had completely changed her appearance. It turned out that Sang Pit had hired her to work in the office, and on her very first day, she had collected all the bad debts. Sang Pit applauded her for her efficiency, but he noticed the threatening glare from Jae Yi beside him, which made him fall silent. Kum Ya had a purpose in taking the job, and that was to announce boldly that within 3 months, she would replace Jae Yi as the office manager. Hearing this, Jae Yi chuckled and gave Sang Pit a sly look, leaving him speechless. Back at home, Jae Yi saw her father wearing campaign clothing for An Oh-ju and even advised her to vote for him. Despite her attempts to convince her father that An Oh-ju was a bad person, he didn't believe her because An Oh-ju had the support of his wife. Meanwhile, Prosecutor Kong confronted An Oh-ju through his secretary, asking if he was really responsible for Mayor Lee's death. However, Chairman An didn't respond directly and brought up Prosecutor Kang's mother, but she remained unfazed, promising to bring someone with a warrant next time. As Prosecutor Kong left, An Oh-ju immediately called her mother and told her that she considered him a criminal. His intimidating words infuriated her. At the same time, Jae Yi and Sang Pit were tirelessly searching for that truck. When Sang Pit received a phone call, Jae Yi suddenly remembered something and wanted to visit Detective Kong. Sang Pit also wanted to accompany her, and at Detective Kong's place, the two of them gathered valuable information, including a photo of the food truck they were looking for. Simultaneously, a video interview segment with Mayor Lee's widow was broadcasted, where she subtly mentioned An Oh-ju as if recalling him during her husband's funeral. She stood alone under her father's bronze statue, reminiscing about the events that occurred during the funeral. On that day, many people came to offer condolences, and one man in particular was consoling her in front of her husband's casket. However, when he went to the restroom, she saw him grinning maliciously at her husband's death. That evening, she intentionally crashed her car into his, and when the man got out to inspect the damage, she fatally stabbed him. She immediately called An Oh-ju to take care of it, concluding that the person she had killed was unrelated to her. Although she felt guilty for her father's death, this authoritarian judge still wanted to surpass him, holding all of Ki-sung in her grip. The next day, the final court session took place. Sang Pit arrived at the courthouse first, while Jae Yi, Kum Ya, and others went to the central location of the food trucks to view the dashcam footage. The department head initially refused to allow access, but Kum Ya remembered his debt, which proved to be a successful threat. However, with many trucks to search through, they didn't know how long it would take. Meanwhile, the trial had already begun, and Sang Pit kept asking questions to prolong the proceedings. After questioning the defendants, Sang Pit redirected his questions to investigator Ho Min, and in the middle of his testimony, Jae Yi and the others arrived. Sang Pit reported that he had evidence, and Prosecutor Kong objected, stating that it hadn't been approved yet. After some negotiations, Sang Pit was allowed to publicly show the video footage. The images of the investigator fabricating evidence shocked everyone present. The prosecution dropped all charges against Hung Man, and he was released. The investigator would be the main defendant in this case. As Hung Man left the detention center, he had to face the death of his wife. Fortunately, he was able to say goodbye to her and prove his innocence. After his wife's death, Hung Man called a woman in Thailand, telling her that her daughter had saved him. It turned out that Jae Yi's mother was still alive. Wu Hung Man gave her some instructions in case something happened to him. Meanwhile, Prosecutor Kong, after indicting her subordinates, received numerous calls that drove her insane. That night, she went to meet Bae Cha, only to be pulled into a group controlled by Moon Suk Cha. The group consisted of influential figures in Ki-sung, all of whom were pawns in Moon Suk's hands. The lavish parties and the sinister smiles behind the scenes were what Prosecutor prosecutor Kong saw in the lives of these influential individuals. An Oh-ju officially held a press conference to introduce himself as the new mayor of Ki-sung City. He promised to take good care of the citizens' lives, ensuring their warmth and happiness. Lee Young-soo, who was also connected to Judge Cha, was excluded from the mayor's seat because he didn't fully submit to Cha Moon-suk. An Oh-ju, on the other hand, acted as a perfect puppet to hand over Ki-sung entirely to her control. The real ruler of Ki-sung was Cha Moon-suk, not An Oh-ju. According to Sang Pit, they would utilize Woo Hung-man because he held key information that could help them destroy Mayor An Oh-ju. This was why An Oh-ju had not been able to kill him yet. When An Oh-ju obtained Woo Hung-man, he would surely eliminate him to silence him. Therefore, Sang Pit and Jae Yi immediately went to meet Woo Hung-man. Just as Woo Hung-man submitted his resignation, citing embarrassment in front of other investigators, he packed up all his belongings. He secretly reached under his desk, retrieved a key hidden there, and carefully put it away. At the same time, the TV began broadcasting Mayor An Oh-ju's inauguration. Woo Hung-man looked at it with disdain, thinking that Oh-ju had poured a mountain of money to reach the mayoral position. He whispered to himself that he would drag Oh-ju down to the bottom of society. Meanwhile, Oh-ju arrived at the Ki-seong district court, and as soon as he stepped out of his car, a group of reporters rushed to interview him. A female reporter asked a question related to whether the mayor used anonymous proxy tactics like other high-ranking officials. After hearing the question, he stood still with a blank expression for 5 seconds and then answered irritably. He proposed firing the female reporter, and Cha Moon-suk had been waiting for him. The two greeted each other, shook hands, and congratulated one another. They stood in front of the statue of Lady Justice and Judge Cha Byung-ho. Mayor An promised to abide by the law, live up to his current title, and received overwhelming applause and support from the crowd. After entering his private office, the masks of the mayor and Cha Moon-suk were removed, revealing that the promises made earlier were scripted. They also executed Oh-ju Group's anonymous proxy plan. Sang Pit and Jae Yi met with Woo Hung-man. He asked Sang Pit how she managed to survive back then and advised both of them not to follow him, as it would be dangerous. However, the real danger was him. Indeed, while Woo Hung-man was driving, An Oh-ju started tailing him. Sang Pit quickly realized this and accelerated, successfully losing Oh-ju. Even though Plan A failed, Sang Pit had planned ahead by placing a tracker on Woo Hung-man's phone, ensuring that they wouldn't lose him. The truth was that years ago, Woo Hung-man spared Jae Yi's mother's life but under the condition that she had to leave her hometown and never return. He used the life of her daughter and family to force her to leave. After all those years, she finally took a flight back to her painful past. The scene shifted to Woo Hung-man opening a car trunk, finding a black box inside containing a gun and a picture of the accident from years ago. At the Oh-ju Group, Mayor An remembered his past. He was an orphan who grew up at a fish market and managed it for 28 years. It took him another 10 years to take control of the Oh-ju Group. Afterwards, one of his subordinates rushed in to report Woo Hung-man's disappearance. An Oh-ju got angry, threatened the subordinate, and ordered everyone to retreat because he would personally confront Woo Hung-man. Sang Pit and Jae Yi arrived at the parking lot mentioned earlier. Woo Hung-man was watching them from above, and he called Jae Yi, informing her that the boxes inside the car contained the lawyer's fees to prove his innocence. In his final words to Jae Yi, he stated that he owed her nothing. After that, he hung up and left. Woo Hung-man went to the bar where An Oh-ju was and demanded that the owner leave. He aimed a gun at An Oh-ju's head but was tricked by him. An Oh-ju turned the tables, smashing a bottle of alcohol over Woo Hung-man's head and brutally beating him. Then, An Oh-ju locked him in an old building secretly. On the other side, lawyer Bong and his team were working tirelessly to find evidence to incriminate the mayor. After a grueling night, they finally discovered a lead. A man named Son Sung-sik, the chairman of Ki-seong Savings Bank. He was also the person who helped An Oh-ju set up the hidden trust. During a private meeting with Mayor An, he revealed that the person who would take over the management of the Oh-ju Group was none other than Chairman Son Sung-sik. At this point, Yeon-hee and her mother were also considering climbing higher to surpass Judge Cha. Sang Pit's team had investigated that in February of the previous year, K-Trust Company had gone bankrupt. This company had been established just a month earlier and had no proper registration. At that time, Ki-seong Bank had lent 50 billion won, with about 10 billion of it coming from the people of Ki-seong. K-Trust was a shady company with connections to the Oh-ju Group. After An Oh-ju had relinquished his shares, they had planned for K-Trust to go bankrupt to help him set up the slush fund. Their mission now was to apprehend Chairman Son Sung-sik to find the location of the mayor's hidden slush fund. However, lawyer Bong's team couldn't carry out this mission on their own. They had to rely on prosecutor Chun Sung-bom, the person who had turned Sang Pit into a criminal lawyer with a past record. After a trial had just concluded, Sang Pit met with Chun Sung-bom and showed him the documents related to the deliberately caused bankruptcy case. Chun Sung-bom initially appeared somewhat disdainful, considering Sang-pit as a crafty person who knew the law and had evidence on the documents. However, his demeanor changed slightly, and he agreed to assist Sang-pit. Meanwhile, Jae Yi was waiting in the lobby for Yoo Kyung-jin, the investigative reporter who had asked the tough questions that made the mayor spray adhesive earlier. Yoo Kyung-jin was known as the best investigative journalist, and she was relentless once she sank her teeth into a story. That's why she was also called Jindo Dog Reporter. Jae Yi went to find her to provide a lead on Mayor On's hidden trust. Sang-pit also requested his subordinates to continue searching for Sok Gwon-dong. Judge Cha, in her private office, was examining a list of accounts opened under new identities. She noticed that one account was missing, which belonged to an orphan suffering from leukemia who had suddenly passed away. She instructed her secretary to investigate the deceased and find more abandoned children. On the other side, the mayor exited his car and was welcomed by a crowd. He entered his office to receive a phone call informing him that the prosecution had initiated an investigation. They were conducting a search and seizure at Ki-seong Savings Bank, where evidence indicated that K-Trust had fraudulently borrowed money through Ki-seong Bank. Chairman Son was also arrested for direct involvement in the fraud. Chun Sung-bom had arrived in the city of Ki-seong along with Inspector Kong Jang-soo to interrogate Chairman Son. He was adamant about shifting the blame onto his new employees, but when Kong Jang-soo pressed him about whether the bankruptcy case he was involved in was related to Mayor On's election campaign fund, Chairman Son continuously denied any connection. The prosecutor informed Son Sung-sik that An Oh-ju had discarded him and planned to eliminate him. They suggested that when someone has been used and then discarded, the best course of action is to bring down that person as well. Meanwhile, the mother of prosecutor Kong sought to visit the prison to meet the person responsible for harming her daughter, as she was convinced that he had been manipulated by An Oh-ju. On the mayor's side, he and Cha Moon-suk are devising a plan to eliminate the individual who might expose the secrets of Ki-seong Savings Bank. The hidden trust scheme of the Oh-ju group has collapsed with the imprisonment of their project representative. Cha Moon-suk demands that An Oh-ju invest in her father's charity fund to sever the ties between him and Chairman Son, effectively transforming it into a black fund. An Oh-ju appears cautious and hesitant, but ultimately agrees to execute this plan. Woo Hung-man is subjected to brutal assaults by An Oh-ju's henchmen in an attempt to extract information, but it proves futile. An Oh-ju threatens to kill Sang-pit and Jae Yi in order to coerce Woo Hung-man into confessing. On the other side, Bon Nam confronts An Oh-ju and slaps him, successfully provoking him. He uses force to subdue her and demands that she serve Cha Moon-suk diligently. Afterward, she rushes to meet Judge Cha, who instructs her to find the judge who disciplined Ha Jae Yi. At that moment, there is a woman in the room who overhears this information and secretly informs Mayor An, unintentionally caught by Bon Nam Soon Ya as she passes by. On the other side, Cha Moon-suk, after successfully inviting the former judge to her side, made arrangements to meet Jae Yi. When she saw Jae Yi, she greeted her warmly and apologized for her previous actions. She also informed Jae Yi that her suspension has ended. However, Jae Yi remained indifferent and warned Cha Moon-suk that once she regains her position, she will investigate all of her wrongdoings and expose them. After conveying this message, Jae Yi left. Sang-pit was waiting outside and greeted her with joy, as they have now become partners. He then proceeded to meet with Cha Moon-suk. Meanwhile, Sang-pit's team of subordinates was monitoring and tracking the mayor. In another scene, Jae Yi's mother arrived at the photo studio at Jae Yi's home, looking at her husband and child, which moved her deeply. Sang-pit met with Cha Moon-suk to inquire about her assistance in reinstating Jae Yi. He mentioned the pain of losing a loved one and how it feels. Afterward, in the room, Cha Moon-suk revealed a stack of photos, including one showing her with a woman named Choi Jin-ae. This woman appears to be a close friend of Cha Moon-suk. In the past, lawyer Choi had found evidence to accuse Cha Moon-suk of her crimes and advised her to confess to reduce her charges. However, Cha Moon-suk disagreed and used Jin-ae's son to warn her to stay out of this matter, as it could affect the child. This made Choi Jin-ae contemplate her actions deeply. Mayor An drove to the warehouse where Hung-man was being held, and upon receiving the notification from his subordinate, Sang-pit rushed there as well. An Oh-ju questioned Hung-man, asking if he was the one who provided the documents related to Ki-seong Bank to Sang-pit's group. After Woo Hung-man admitted it, the mayor ordered his subordinates to silence him and then proceeded to Hung-man's safe where he poured gasoline to burn all the incriminating evidence related to past crimes. Sang-pit arrived just in time and, along with his subordinates, engaged in a fight with An Oh-ju's men to rescue Woo Hung-man. However, in the heat of the moment, Hung-man took a powerful blow to the head, and Sang-pit's team managed to subdue An Oh-ju's men. Sang-pit chased after and supported Woo Hung-man, but due to the previous blow, Hung-man's condition deteriorated rapidly. His final words were of gratitude to Sang-pit for acting as his defense attorney and helping him get out of prison. He asked Sang-pit never to forgive him for the things he had done before passing away. Meanwhile, the fake mayor was holding a press conference accusing construction companies of stealing raw materials. conducting shoddy construction, and engaging in corruption by bribing labor unions and taking advantage of the emotional distress of displaced residents. He also announced that he was overseeing 2 redevelopment projects in Xinjiang District and the Golden City project on behalf of the city government. Sang Pit and Jae Yi organized a funeral for Wu Hungman, and the fake mayor attended as well. He maintained a nonchalant attitude and delivered insincere words of condolences in front of Hungman's portrait. Before leaving, he made a sarcastic comment to Sang Pit, mentioning his late mother, and then departed. During the funeral, Jae Yi's mother also arrived to pay her respects. She accidentally bumped into her daughter, leaving her momentarily stunned. No Han-ju couldn't contain her emotions, and she quickly turned away and left, unintentionally dropping her glasses near Jae Yi. Before his passing, Wu Hungman had informed Sang Pit about the fact that No Han-ju was still alive. Upon hearing this, Sang Pit immediately sent his subordinates to search for her whereabouts. Sang Pit and Jae Yi are currently celebrating together with a drink to mark Jae Yi's return to her position. Sang Pit looks at her with a tender gaze, and then he carries Jae Yi along the coastline towards their home, creating a romantic scene. In another scene, Ba Nam and Jae Yi's father visit Tham Phan Cha's home. Ba Nam asks him to take a portrait photo for her upcoming autobiography. However, her true motive is to request that he send Jae Yi back to Seoul. It turns out that she intends to manipulate Tham Phan Cha because she knows that he is Ha Jae Yi's major weakness. As Sang Pit brings Jae Yi back home, Ha arrives at the same time. With a serious expression, he calls Jae Yi inside and questions her about Cha Moon-suk's assistance in her reinstatement. He immediately insists that she return to Seoul. Upon hearing this, she reveals to her father that Cha Moon-suk was the mastermind behind her mother's disappearance years ago. Ha believes that Sang Pit has influenced her thinking and, in anger, slaps her before ordering her to pack up and leave for Seoul. Jae Yi, feeling frustrated, drags her suitcase to Sang Pit and asks if she can stay for a while. After entering their home, they sit down and have a heart-to-heart conversation. Sang Pit shares the story of his mother with Jae Yi and expresses his determination to bring Cha Moon-suk to justice. Despite their different backgrounds, they understand and comfort each other, helping each other overcome the obstacles in life. On Sang Pit's side, upon hearing the news that No Han-ju is currently in Ki-seong, he rushed over to Ki-seong. Mayor An arrived at the place where Chairman Son was being held, confirming that An Oh-ju had completely abandoned Son Sung-sik. Today, he came here to take his daughter away in order to force him to admit all the charges against himself. Of course, because Son Sung-sik and his family have accepted everything he did, the prosecutor's office also demanded that the investigation into this case be stopped. Sang Pit and his law office staff were happily celebrating Jae Yi's return to duty, and even the hidden feelings in Sang Pit's heart came out. This made everyone freeze for 5 seconds, feeling embarrassed for being caught off guard. Jiam Ya, who had a one-sided affection for Sang Pit, was appointed as a manager. She was so happy that she prepared food for Sang Pit, but unexpectedly, her jealous wife snatched the food and gave it to her husband. This left Jiam Ya speechless. Regarding what happened yesterday, when Jae Yi stayed overnight with Sang Pit, curious staff members asked about it. Sang Pit mentioned that due to a temporary situation at Jae Yi's house, she would be staying in the office for a while. After hearing this, Jiam Ya made an effort to separate the two and suggested that Jae Yi stay at her place temporarily. At that moment, Prosecutor Chun arranged to meet Sang Pit and informed him about Chairman Son's case. They concluded that matter here and discussed new plans together. No Han-ju came face to face with Sang Pit's side, worried that Chairman Moon-suk and her father would not spare her if they found out she was still alive. However, after 18 years of living alone, No Han-ju didn't want to continue that life and decided to return to Ki-seong. Cha Moon-suk and Ba Nam were discussing the donation of Oh-ju's shares to the charity fund when An Oh-ju entered and announced that the bank director's case had been resolved. After the conversation, Nam Soon-ya and Mayor An left together, chatting along the way. An Oh-ju inadvertently mentioned Jae Yi's return to her position with the help of Judge Cha. However, this information was a private secret between her and Cha Moon-suk, leading her to suspect that the informant might be an insider. Back in her room, she questioned her housekeeper, and the housekeeper admitted that it was An Oh-ju who instigated it. Returning to the conversation between Jae Yi's mother and Choi De-wong, Mr. Choi promised to help her reunite with her family and decided not to stand idly by because it also involved Sang Pit. On TV, the news is airing that the bank chairman Son Sung-sik has confessed to all crimes, and then An Oh-ju appears to award scholarships and fulfill his promise to donate his shares to society. Realizing the need to target each unfavorable person within Sang Pit's group, they discuss a plan to cast a wide net and capture them all. An Oh-ju calls Sang Pit to issue a warning that if he continues to cause trouble, he won't spare the person Sang Pit cares about the most and then hangs up. Sang Pit quickly contacts his cousin, whom they had arranged to meet at the old bar. He informs Mr. Choi about An Oh-ju's declaration of war and asks for help in protecting Jae Yi. The mayor, unexpectedly, has someone monitoring Sang Pit's movements and knows this information. While Mr. Choi is tailing Jae Yi, An Oh-ju has someone block Choi De-wong's car and invites him for a private meeting. Meanwhile, Ba Nam is looking for a new masseuse for Cha Moon-suk. Jae Yi's mother also applies for the job, which is somewhat surprising, and she ends up choosing No Hyun-ju. Sang Pit, Jae Yi, and prosecutor Chun are working together to investigate An Oh-ju, with hopes of Chun Sung-bum's promotion. Prosecutor Kong Yeon-hee is assigned to work with prosecutor Chun to help him get acquainted with the work in Ki-sung. No Hyun-ju arrived at Cha Moon-suk's place to give her a massage, and she introduced herself as Mama. The scene shifts to Sang Pit, who changes his clothes and goes to a store to buy a bouquet of flowers. Today, they pretend to go on a work trip to escape their responsibilities. Secretly, Sang Pit takes Jae Yi to a place he had arranged in advance and surprises her with a birthday cake he had prepared for her. They sing together to celebrate and send good wishes to Jae Yi's mother. At that moment, Jae Yi is probably very happy and surprises Sang Pit with a kiss on his forehead. The romantic scene makes others envy them, and afterward, they peacefully stand together, admiring the city. Choi De-wong goes to meet An Oh-ju, putting on a fake face. After talking for a while, he also requests Mr. Choi to bring Sang Pit back to Seoul. Of course, Choi De-wong doesn't agree. Seeing that Choi De-wong is reluctant to talk, he signals to his henchman to inject a sedative into him. After 10 seconds, the drug takes effect, and Choi De-wong faints, being taken away by An Oh-ju's men. Sang Pit brings Jae Yi back, and they embrace in front of her house, discussing their commitment to protect her no matter what happens. Sang Pit's cousin is taken to the rooftop of a building, and An Oh-ju's men call Sang Pit, demanding that he come immediately. Upon receiving the phone call, Sang Pit instructs his subordinate, who appears to be with Jae Yi and the driver, to rush to the rescue. Upon arriving, they find Choi De-wong hanging, and Sang Pit bravely confronts and defeats the guards at the scene. The rope holding Choi De-wong is cut, and Sang Pit tries to grab and pull him up. When he succeeds in grabbing Choi De-wong's hand, Choi De-wong tells him not to save him anymore as it's too late. He advises Sang Pit not to seek revenge and to live a happy life. He then lets go of Sang Pit's hand, falling to his death on the spot. Unexpectedly, An Oh-ju had arranged for the police to be at the scene in advance. After Choi De-wong's death, they immediately handcuff Sang Pit as a suspect in the murder case. Jae Yi's intuition is painfully accurate, and upon learning the news, she collapses. As for An Oh-ju, he is overjoyed that his plan has succeeded. When Cha Moon-suk saw the news about Sang Pit on TV, her expression turned unpleasant, and just at that moment, her secretary Nam entered to report the situation. She could tell it was An Oh-ju's plan, and Judge Cha was extremely furious, summoning him for an immediate meeting. Since his appointment as mayor, he had become arrogant to the point of not caring about anyone else. He would casually delegate tasks to his subordinates before looking for Cha Moon-suk. Seeing the situation, Secretary Nam tried to warn An Oh-ju and then hung up, leaving An Oh-ju to laugh mockingly. Meanwhile, Sang Pit's law firm office was stormed by the police and prosecutors. Jae Yi, upon seeing familiar faces entering the office, received a cold confirmation from Chun Sung-bum about the investigation. Kong Yeon-hee stood by, mocking Jae Yi, knowing that Sang Pit would cause trouble, but she didn't expect it to involve murder. Jae Yi left and headed to the prison to find Sang Pit. On the way, she received news of finding sedatives in the office, and Kum Kong, Sang Pit's subordinate, was also taken away. Inside the prison, Sang Pit was in deep despair after witnessing his cousin's death right in front of him. Seeing Jae Yi, he felt as though he had found his last remaining loved one. She embraced him with deep affection, determined to get him out. At the police station, where Kum Kang's group was being questioned, Jae Yi entered and pointed out that treating witnesses like suspects could lead to charges being pressed. The police officer fell silent, and Jae Yi took everyone back. That evening, they all had dinner together, but the atmosphere was heavy. It was only later that they realized Yang Dong, another subordinate, had disappeared out of fear. Kum Kang's little sister scolded him for losing Dong. Jae Yi, despite her heavy heart, tried to remain optimistic and bring the two back together, encouraging everyone to eat. That same night, An Oh-ju went to meet Judge Cha, no longer displaying his loyal dog-like attitude. He was entirely arrogant. He even attempted to snatch the wine from Judge Cha's hand, and, when she spilled it on him, he quickly grabbed the bottle and downed it in one go. He mentioned that putting Sang Pit in prison was his way of loyalty, an attempt to bury Judge Cha's past. However, she paid no heed and immediately left. The next day, Jae Yi went to meet Judge Cha, pleading with her to allow Sang Pit to attend his cousin's funeral. She lowered herself in front of Judge Cha, who laughed and said Jae Yi must ensure that Sang Pit is proven innocent and wins the trial. Jae Yi understood Judge Cha's ulterior motive but considered getting Sang Pit Pit out as the top priority, so she promised to visit her later. On the day of Choi Dae-wong's funeral, many people came to pay their respects, all of whom were like family to him. One man, who seemed close to Choi Dae-wong, got into a heated argument with Trong Fong Tae. He even threw a punch at him. Jae Yi tried to intervene and explained that Sang Pit was wrongly accused, but the man didn't believe her. When the police brought Sang Pit, the same man confronted him and prevented him from entering to pay his respects. Sang Pit looked at his close friend with disbelief and could only plead desperately to be allowed inside. Mr. Kong Jang-soo showed his police badge to let Sang Pit in, and when he saw Choi Dae-wong's memorial tablet, Sang Pit burst into tears. He cried intensely for a long time, expressing his pain. As the police took him away, Sang Pit asked Trong Fong Tae to protect Jae Yi and prevent her from doing anything dangerous. Later, Inspector Kong took Sang Pit to a corner and asked him a few questions. Instead of inquiring about the murder, he asked about Sang Pit's mother. When he learned that Sang Pit was indeed the son of Choi Jin-ae, he didn't seem too surprised. After returning to prison, An Oh-ju visited Sang Pit, continuously taunting him and suggesting that Sang Pit should just accept his fate in prison. However, as Mayor An prepared to leave, Sang Pit burst into laughter and informed him that Judge Cha wanted him acquitted, whereas Oh-ju wanted him dead. This discord between them left Oh-ju in deep contemplation, even leading him to vent his frustrations to his dim-witted associate Guang Dong. During an investigation at the crime scene the next day, Jae Yi narrowly avoided being hit by some falling iron bars. Fortunately, Chief Trong Fong Tae pulled her to safety. Following this incident, Jae Yi met with Sang Pit, and they discussed the case and the witnesses on the prosecutor's side. Sang Pit reassured her that he wasn't worried and hoped that she wouldn't be overly concerned about him. The next day, Jae Yi's father came to her office and urged her to leave for Seoul, away from Sang Pit. However, this time, Jae Yi courageously told her father that she loved Sang Pit, and it seemed that her father had no further words to say. In prison, Sang Pit reunited with his former ally, Scorpion, with whom he used to enjoy drinking. Sang Pit explained himself, insisting that he didn't kill Choi Dae-wong. The man warned that if Sang Pit couldn't prove his innocence, he would meet his end at the man's hands. Jae Yi's mother, meanwhile, had been watching the news and held evidence from the past, indicating that she had likely made her own decisions. The morning of Sang Pit's first trial was approaching, and Jae Yi, who had been away from her lawyer duties for a long time, returned without much concern for her attire. Her father arrived and brought her a more formal outfit, not because of Sang Pit but because she was his beloved daughter. The trial began with the prosecutor continuously presenting evidence of Sang Pit's alleged crimes. All the dangerous objects found at the crime scene had his fingerprints. On the other side, An Oh-ju smoothly played the diplomatic game, ensuring that Guang Dong, the actor playing the key witness, performed convincingly. Meanwhile, in the courtroom, the witness had arrived and affirmed that he had seen Sang Pit push Choi Dae-wong off the building. However, when asked about the color of the nearby advertising billboard, which was within his line of sight, the witness couldn't provide an answer. His hesitation gave Jae Yi a reason to question the credibility of his testimony. The trial was temporarily paused for the jury to deliberate. When it resumed, the prosecution presented unfavorable evidence, somehow obtaining Choi Dae-wong's insurance registration paper with Sang Pit listed as the payer. The first trial ended with everything seemingly unfavorable for Sang Pit, yet everyone remained optimistic. That evening, Jae Yi went home to collect some belongings. Kum Ya and Chief Tae were waiting for her inside. Her mother, No Yeon-ju, arrived pretending to want a photo shoot, and Jae Yi reluctantly took photos for her since the shop was closed. Her unexpected reunion with her father caught her by surprise. Recently, Ba Cha had been in a different mood, and today, she was at the horse racing track, looking very relaxed. An old acquaintance of her husband had come to see her, pulling her into the political whirlwind. Ba Cha, being wise, didn't refuse and agreed to some extent. When Yeon-ju came to visit Jae Yi, she claimed to be Judge Cha's masseuse, introduced by Choi Dae-wong. She mentioned that he had given her a few things, and then she handed a bundle of pictures to Jae Yi. After looking at them, Jae Yi was completely shocked. In prison, Sang Pit recalled his previous conversation with Choi Dae-wong, who had mentioned bringing along some fellow inmates, likely the Scorpion Gang. Sang Pit went to find Choi Dae-wong, but he already knew about the courtroom situation and tried to punch him. To prove his innocence, Choi Dae-wong held a toothbrush and stabbed it into his abdomen, causing blood to flow. Other inmates noticed and called for the prison staff. Sang Pit urgently told him to run away, but Choi Dae-wong stayed, enduring excruciating pain. Meanwhile, Jae Yi was engrossed in the evidence that had been presented, clear photos of An Oh-ju's murder case from years ago, which helped Cha Moon-suk commit the crime. After being discovered, Sang Pit was immediately rushed to the hospital, and Jae Yi and the others received the news shortly after. Outside the emergency room, Jae Yi was so overwhelmed that she could barely stand. However, she tried to remain calm to reassure everyone, including herself. The news of Sang Pit being stabbed in prison spread, and even An Oh-ju had to suspect that his own men might have secretly attacked him. As the truth became clear, they started doubting each other. Ba Cha believed An Oh-ju, while he suspected that Ba Cha might have hired another assassin, causing internal conflicts. Fortunately, Sang Pit received timely medical attention, and he survived the critical condition, bringing relief to everyone. Afterwards, Jae Yi, with her lawyer status and the acquired permission, visited Sang Pit. Seeing him lying in the hospital bed unconscious broke her heart. As she held him and cried, she promised to treat him well. When Sang Pit woke up, his first words were to confirm whether she was telling the truth. Even in such a situation, he still wanted to playfully call her a dog, lightening the mood. That evening, they all returned to the law office, and seeing Jae Yi looking tired and worn out, everyone wanted to cheer her up. However, the investigation was hitting a dead end, which added to her frustration. Seeing her still not in a good mood, the group of them shouted a slogan, "The law firm is invincible," to lift her spirits, and it brought a rare smile to her face. The next day, during their car ride, Guangdong brought up the man who had a confrontation with Sang Pit at Kua Dewang's funeral and believed that he might have been the one who stabbed Sang Pit. However, Mayor An didn't share this belief. He thought that someone inheriting the position of a gang leader might not be inclined to seek revenge for their leader's death. In fact, they might even be grateful for it. He questioned Guangdong if he would seek revenge if he were in that position. Guangdong's expression showed that he probably wouldn't seek revenge, but he insisted that he would. Turning the tables, Mayor An asked what would happen if Cha Moon-suk died. An Oh-ju just chuckled without giving a direct answer. Today, An Oh-ju intentionally visited the hospital to provoke Sang Pit. He taunted Sang Pit, reminding him of how he used to beat people senseless and ended up with a bunch of enemies as a result. As they left, Mayor An bumped into Prosecutor Chun, and the two of them, despite their long-standing animosity, exchanged polite smiles while holding back their true feelings. After Prosecutor Chun left, Mayor An explained that he had brought the person who had stabbed Sang Pit for an identification lineup. They had apprehended the right person, but Sang Pit denied it. Sang Pit claimed that the person who had attacked him was not Bo Cap but someone with a slimmer build. The Kong police wanted Sang Pit to have a closer look, but he remained firm in his denial. The next day, the meeting regarding Sang Pit's pardon request took place, but Judge Cha rejected the request due to concerns that Sang Pit might be intentionally harming himself to prolong the trial and destroy evidence. Jae Yi visited Sang Pit afterward, and her somber expression didn't go unnoticed by him. However, Sang Pit wasn't overly concerned, and he didn't let it bother him too much. Later on, Jae Yi encouraged him to go outside for some fresh air. The police were always present in the background. When they reunited with everyone at Mu Bep law firm, Sang Pit's spirits lifted. He teased them a bit, jokingly saying that he wanted some private space for the two of them. So, the others decided to give the couple some room by staying away. Back in the hospital room, Jae Yi showed Sang Pit the stack of photos she had received from the mysterious woman. She recounted the woman's story, and the photos left Sang Pit quite surprised. He kept staring at them, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Meanwhile, Cha Moon-suk was receiving a massage at her private residence. She intended to avoid any further visits from An Oh-ju, but he showed up at her doorstep. He explained his presence, trying to avoid any misunderstandings. Yun-ju and Secretary Nam were also sent away by him. An Oh-ju paid Yun-ju but threw the money carelessly, instructing her to remain silent about whatever she had heard that day. That evening, Cha Moon-suk returned home, clutching the photo of Jae Yi, her daughter, and brooding over the evidence she had provided. Only her naive father, who had dressed up and gone to take pictures for Judge Cha, was blissfully unaware of everything. No matter what Jae Yi said, he didn't listen, leaving her with no choice but to stay silent. At the photoshoot location, Judge Cha decided to move some items because he wasn't satisfied with the background. As a result, he accidentally knocked over an expensive porcelain vase. Cha Moon-suk didn't care and urged him to hurry up and take the photos. Yun-ju came to clean up, unaware if she noticed anything unusual, but Cha Moon-suk immediately asked about Jae Yi's mother at that moment. On the morning of the following day, Jae Yi received a message from the woman who wanted to meet her and talk. Facing her daughter after 18 years, Yun-ju displayed immense courage. Jae Yi looked at her, and it was evident that she trusted her mother deeply. At the hospital, she told Sang Pit that even if he didn't believe the woman, he should at least believe her. The extent of her trust in the woman was evident. After Jae Yi left the hospital, An Oh-ju, after much contemplation, also paid a visit to Sang Pit. However, he didn't anticipate that some of the followers of Chai De-wong's gang had already joined Cha Moon-suk's hired assassin to eliminate Sang Pit. Only then did An Oh-ju realize the gravity of the situation. He dealt with the gang members in the room, then unlocked the door to free Sang Pit. The two of them fought their way out together. When they thought it was over, another group of people arrived. They got stuck in the elevator and engaged in a prolonged brawl. In the end, Sang Pit and An Oh-ju emerged victorious, both covered in blood. Sang Pit was suspicious of who was behind this attack, and An Oh-ju was no fool. He could guess what had happened. After escaping the siege, Sang Pit somehow made it to the law firm's office. When Jae Yi saw him covered in wounds and deathly pale, she felt like crying but couldn't. She knew something had happened at the hospital and didn't call for an ambulance but instead called Prosecutor Chun and told him to come quickly. quickly. When Prosecutor Chun arrived, he was about to say something, but when he saw Sang Pit in such a condition, he didn't say anything more and quickly took him away. On An Oh-ju's side, after this night, he had learned many things, and when he saw the attitude of his assistant, Guangdong, he had even more thoughts and suspicions. Before the trial, Mayor An Oh-ju proactively contacted Jae Yi, and when she entered the courtroom, her face showed a serious demeanor. The whole courtroom was abuzz when they learned that the new witness for the defendant was Mayor An Oh-ju. He invoked his honor as the mayor to ensure that Sang Pit wasn't the real culprit, surprising everyone. Before the lawsuit, Jae Yi had met with An Oh-ju to agree to some terms, and she suspected that he wanted something in return. Whatever he wanted would be revealed after the trial, and there was no time for hesitation. Jae Yi agreed to his proposal. On the prosecution side, they also agreed to allow An Oh-ju to testify. With him as a witness, the trial took an unusual turn and ended quickly. An Oh-ju stated that the murderer was his bodyguard, who killed Chai De-wong when he threatened An. He added that the bodyguard had confessed, and the prosecutor would receive this information shortly. At that moment, Prosecutor Chun received the news. An Oh-ju publicly apologized to Sang Pit and everyone present for his bodyguard's actions. Following discussions, the prosecutor deemed further investigation and the trial unnecessary, leading to the trial's abrupt end. After the trial, An Oh-ju garnered significant media attention and explained that he testified to ensure fairness for his bodyguard. The prosecution held a press conference to apologize to Sang Pit for their wrongful investigation. An Oh-ju's newfound fame led to constant complaints from his male manager. The detective agency celebrated Sang Pit's release with a seaside meal. During this gathering, Jae Yi contemplated her next moves, and Sang Pit joined her in discussing Cha Moon-suk's claims. Jae Yi decided to meet Cha Moon-suk personally to seek answers, and she promptly left for that meeting. Cha Moon-suk believed that Jae Yi was not entitled to receive answers because the case's outcome was not dependent on her. Jae Yi didn't inquire further about the reasons. Instead, she asked Cha Moon-suk if removing the punishment against her was the first step in her plan. Cha Moon-suk laughed and revealed that she wanted to groom Jae Yi as her successor, but Jae Yi's current attitude was different. When Jae Yi wanted to leave, Cha Moon-suk mentioned that if Jae Yi's mother were alive, would she still return to her old self or be influenced by Bong Sang Pil? However, what surprised her the most was that Jae Yi seemed unaffected. She told Cha Moon-suk not to forget that she had saved her in the past. That evening, Bong Sang Pil thought a lot and didn't want Jae Yi to suffer anymore. He went to find An Oh-ju. His sole purpose was to warn An Oh-ju to stay away from Jae Yi. He made it clear that if An Oh-ju harmed her, he wouldn't hesitate to resolve the matter outside the realm of legal discussion. On the other side, Cha Moon-suk continually tested Jae Yi's mother, but Yeon-ju, inattentive, accidentally revealed her secret. The next day at the law firm, Yang-dong, who had been missing for a while, returned and faced everyone to tell his story. It turned out that when An Oh-ju's former assistant came to place a box of sleeping pills in the office, Yang-dong had noticed and was subsequently abducted by him. Now Yang-dong was back with a head injury. Sang Pit didn't pay too much attention to this incident. He simply instructed Yang-dong to take care of his wounds and not feel guilty. Cha Moon-suk couldn't hold back any longer and went to An Oh-ju's place to hear an explanation. Mayor An, with his quick-thinking mind, showed some photos that Sang Pit had sent him and falsely claimed that he had been threatened. It's unclear whether Cha Moon-suk believed him or not, but these hostilities were making it difficult for their relationship to return to what it once was. At the law firm, Yeon-ju came to talk to Jae Yi about Cha Moon-suk's important meeting. However, when confronted by Sang Pit and his questions, she quickly fled the scene. Setting all that aside, Sang Pit took Jae Yi on a date, just enjoying some fast food, which made them both happy. While Sang Pit trusted Jae Yi, he was concerned about her unusual behavior around other men. Afterward, he called everyone together to discuss their battle plan, with Cha Moon-suk being their primary target. Kum Ya was sent undercover as a golf club employee. On that day, she successfully bugged the car of a National Assembly delegate and Cha Moon-suk. Whether it was real or fake, Cha Moon-suk expressed her intention to become the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, which surprised both Sang Pit and Jae Yi. Today, Cha Moon-suk had a trial, where she handed down a death penalty verdict for a gruesome murder case, causing an uproar from the defendant's family. She appeared to struggle while delivering the verdict. While Cha Moon-suk was deep in thought, Sang Pit confronted her, said a few challenging words, and then left. In the days that followed, they continued to report on the candidate for the Chief Justice position at the Supreme Court. At the same time, Sang Pit and Jae Yi brought those photos to the journalist who had previously exposed the bank scandal. She hesitated a bit because in Ki-sung, no one dared to report this, and outside of Ki-sung as well. but as a journalist with ethics, she eventually agreed to publish the photos. Recently, there were rumors that Ba Cha wanted to leave Ki Sung, and her distant attitude towards her secretary, Nam, had shaken her trust. Finally, on the night of that party, Ba Nam fully agreed with An Oh-ju, as if Cha Moon-suk had given her consent with a single nod to An Oh-ju. The next day, the news broadcasted a photo related to the case of the Golden City chairman from 18 years ago, implicating Ba Cha Moon-suk. The media exploded, shifting all public attention towards her, with An Oh-ju's face blurred out in the photo. He believed this was the start of something big, so he began to be cautious. That evening, Sang Pit intercepted Ba Yun-ju, and the two of them had a conversation by the seaside. Sang Pit didn't know her, but for Jae Yi's safety, he hoped she would stay away from her. To his shock, when she spoke the truth, Sang Pit turned, unable to believe his eyes. The person who had saved him 18 years ago was standing in front of him. She thanked him for taking care of Jae Yi but also begged him not to involve her in danger anymore. She questioned whether he could protect her forever. After listening to her, Sang Pit returned home, only to encounter a recently released scorpion waiting for him downstairs. He said he followed Wang's orders to go to the Ki Sung prison, and now he was in charge of the Ki Sung office. If Sang Pit needed anything, he should let him know. Before leaving, he mentioned Bae, the heir to Wang's entire empire, who always claimed that Sang Pit was the culprit. Little did anyone know that he had already conspired with Ba Cha Moon-suk. That night, Sang Pit couldn't stop thinking about Jae Yi's mother's words. The next day, he immediately took her to martial arts practice, but he seemed unusually distant. Jae Yi reached out to support him, but he didn't respond, leaving her suspicious. Suddenly, Trong Fong Tae entered the scene. It turned out that Ba Cha had called for an urgent press conference. While she was addressing various issues and promises, the father of the defendant who had received the death penalty the day before rushed in and physically assaulted her. The scene descended into chaos, and An Oh-ju sat in a room, quietly chuckling. Sang Pit and Jae Yi were training together when news on TV announced Cha Moon-suk's acceptance as a Supreme Court candidate with widespread support. However, at that moment, a man, whose son had been sentenced to death by Cha Moon-suk in the past, came to find her and threw a bottle of alcohol at her head, causing a chaotic scene of panic. Cha Moon-suk was immediately rushed to the hospital, and the man who attacked her was arrested. According to An Oh-ju, this incident would divert public attention away from the previous photo scandal, allowing her to move on. On Sang Pit's side, they also discovered Cha Moon-suk's scheme and found a video recorded from a different angle, which had been taken by a bystander. An Oh-ju arrived at the hospital after a call from Ba Nam, inquiring about Cha Moon-suk's health. Cha Moon-suk requested Mayor An to inform the media that she was still in a coma. Nam Soon-ya was tasked with arranging for the chief editor Ha and the head of the Control Institute Jang to meet with Ba Cha tomorrow. Cha Moon-suk now had her back against the wall, and An Oh-ju was right there with her. Both of them concealed their true intentions behind their masks, and even a minor misstep could be fatal. Keep watching to see who would emerge as the ultimate victor. An Oh-ju disclosed to the press that Cha Moon-suk was indeed in a coma, just as she had planned, and he put on a fake show of taking responsibility as the mayor. In the video recording, it became evident that Cha Moon-suk had known she would be attacked but chose to endure the blow to stage herself as the victim. She had successfully deceived the entire city of Ki Sung, using danger to ward off danger. Lying in her hospital bed, she saw everything falling into place as the previous defendant's father had been arrested, and the demand for an authentication of the old photo from 18 years ago was growing. Cha Moon-suk smiled with satisfaction. At the Mu Bep law office, they were still searching for information about the photograph. Cha Moon-suk's supporters had been standing outside the hospital with candles all night. When combined with the influence of the gaming enthusiasts, this game would come to an end. Cha Moon-suk had presided over thousands of cases for many years, many involving unimaginable crimes. She understood human nature well and exploited it to turn the tables in this game. Chief editor Ha and the head of the Control Institute, Jang, arrived at Cha Moon-suk's location and instructed them not to do anything to the father. They then ordered Chief Editor Ha to call the reporters, changed her clothes, and went to the Ki Sung City police station. There, she was surrounded by many supporters, and using her eloquence, she expressed sympathy and understanding towards the father who had lost his child. She attributed most of the events to her own rulings and declared that she wouldn't punish the father, giving him a seemingly sincere hug. Later, Sang Pit asked her about her deliberate act of having the bottle of alcohol thrown at her to destroy the photo from 18 years ago. Of course, Cha Moon-suk denied it and claimed that the photo was fake, concluding her statement and leaving. Sang Pit was currently avoiding Jae Yi, which was causing her concern and leading to many thoughts. After Jim Ya brought food to their room, the two of them sat down to confide in each other. Jim Ya believed that men would occasionally have such moments and advised Jae Yi not to do anything that would make him harm himself but rather to be understanding. In the office, Sang Pit was also feeling conflicted about Jae Yi's mother's request from earlier. He called Gwang Soo to talk about it, and before revealing the details, he he emphasized the importance of keeping it a secret. On another front, Ba No Hein Ju and Sang Pit had arranged to meet at the beach. He wanted to confirm if she had sent the ledger to him in episode 1 through that anonymous account. However, Ba No Hein Ju's response left Sang Pit astonished. She denied sending the ledger. Judge Hong visited Cha Moon-suk, and it was revealed that he and Representative Jo were family. He brought a high-quality feathered pen and inkwell as a gift to celebrate her recovery. It turned out that thanks to Cha Moon-suk's invitation, Representative Jo's position was becoming more secure, which made Judge Hong deeply grateful and appreciative of Cha Moon-suk. At that moment, the head of the Control Institute, Jang, knocked on the door and entered. He asked Judge Hong to convey to Representative Jo that he would stand by Cha Moon-suk's side in the near future. On the side of Mayor An, he received news that the entire Golden City project in Ki-sung had been temporarily postponed. Knowing that Cha Moon-suk had put this project on hold and seemingly handed it over to An Oh-ju, he became agitated and immediately went to see Cha Moon-suk. Upon arrival, he found Go In-do with Cha Moon-suk and anxiously inquired about what was happening. An Oh-ju had invested a lot of effort into this project, and Cha Moon-suk's vague response further infuriated him. Mayor An believed that she had swallowed the Oh-ju group and now wanted to abandon it. However, Cha Moon-suk clarified that An Oh had voluntarily gifted the group to Ki-sung, which essentially meant he had given it to her. At this point, An Oh-ju realized that his loyal dog had bitten back at its master. Lawyer Go In-do had conspired with Cha Moon-suk to play a painful game on An Oh-ju. From that moment on, An Oh-ju would no longer heed Cha Moon's orders and would act based on his own anger. On his way back to Guangdong, An Oh-ju had a conversation with the city authorities because his brother-in-law wanted to construct a skyscraper, but the city government had yet to approve it. After hearing this, An Oh-ju seemed furious and ordered the driver to stop. Upon exiting the car, An Oh-ju confronted Guangdong, warning him about his behavior in the future if he wanted to keep his life. He then drove away, leaving Guangdong startled. Sang Pit was investigating the sender of the ledger, whom he suspected might be An Oh-ju. He and his crew devised a plan to confront Sok Guangdong. This time, Sang Pit didn't want a physical altercation but aimed to make Guangdong disappear and reclaim what his younger brother had suffered. Sok Guangdong, feeling frustrated from earlier events, was drinking with his two sisters to drown his sorrows when Sang Pit arrived. Upon seeing Sang Pit, Guangdong, who was a cowardly man, immediately realized that something was amiss and wanted to leave. However, Sang Pit swiftly incapacitated him, causing him to faint. He was then dragged and placed in the trunk of Sang Pit's car. In a warehouse, Guangdong was suspended, facing a life-threatening situation similar to what he had forced Sang Pit's brother into. Sang Pit interrogated him about everything Guangdong had done to his younger brother and recorded the conversation as evidence. Desperate, Guangdong begged Sang Pit to spare him and confessed that An Oh-ju was the mastermind behind everything. However, Sang Pit didn't believe him and demanded concrete evidence. Fearing that An Oh-ju would shift the blame onto him, Guangdong decided to turn over his phone. After taking Guangdong's fingerprints to unlock his phone, Sang Pit instructed him to cut the tether. It was just a warning, so Guangdong fell from a relatively low height, which didn't endanger his life. Sang Pit then made sure his younger brother's recorded conversation was adjusted to fit the situation and collected all information related to An Oh-ju from Guangdong's phone before leaving, satisfied with the outcome. Nam Soon-ya heard about the postponement of the Golden City project and rushed to find An Oh-ju. She assured him that she would do anything as long as they could retrieve the money. At the same time, Sang Pit arrived at An Oh-ju's office to deliver the good news he had just obtained. He unintentionally discovered the collusion between An Oh-ju and Nam Soon-ya and threatened to inform Cha Moon-suk about it. Sang Pit's purpose for being there was to inform An Oh-ju to expect a gift from him in the news the next day. He also inquired casually about Sok Guangdong's whereabouts. Unexpectedly, before Sang Pit turned to leave, An Oh-ju pulled out a gun and pointed it at him. Sang Pit calmly approached, and An Oh-ju warned him not to spread rumors. He threatened to shoot him if Sang Pit continued to talk recklessly. Sang Pit smiled and coldly walked away. On his end, Sang Pit's team had also found a video that recorded the conversation between An Oh-ju and Sok Guangdong. In that video, there was evidence that An Oh-ju had ordered Guangdong to kidnap Sang Pit's brother. To confirm the identity of the ledger sender, Sang Pit had instructed his crew to release the evidence on the internet before handing it over to Prosecutor Keel. Mayor An was currently having investigators look into Sok Guangdong's whereabouts. Just then, news broadcasts released a video and audio recording accusing An Oh-ju of inciting others to commit murder. Ha Jae Yi, upon learning that Sang Pit had been working on this alone without informing her, was quite upset. She arranged to meet him privately, questioning his strange behavior over the past few days. Jae Yi asked if there was something he couldn't tell her, to which Sang Pit replied that there was nothing left to discuss between them. After hearing this, she turned and walked away. Cha Moon-suk, upon hearing the news, called Prosecutor Kong and handed him a list of campaign donations received by candidate An Oh-ju. She was determined to destroy An Oh-ju completely. An Oh-ju is currently instructing his secretary, Kim, to search every corner to find Sok Guan-dong. After Jae Yi returned to the office, Bon No-hein-ju called her and invited her to have a meal, which she agreed to. They met at a restaurant, and when the dishes were served, it included shrimp, to which Jae Yi had an allergic reaction. Bon No-hein-ju unintentionally revealed that she knew about Jae Yi's shrimp allergy. Jae Yi was surprised as only her mother knew about this allergy. She started to suspect that Bon No-hein-ju might be her biological mother. At the same time, Nam Soon-ya called Bon No to come to Cha Moon-suk's house to give her a massage. Sang Pit, on the other hand, also received a message from Bon No and immediately rushed to Bon No-hein-ju's location. When Bon No-hein-ju arrived, she tried to put some substance into Cha Moon-suk's tea. However, due to her carelessness, the substance spilled outside the teacup, and Cha Moon-suk noticed it. She also realized that the massage therapist was Bon No-hein-ju, the one who had escaped years ago. In a critical moment, Bon No-hein-ju tried to hit Cha Moon-suk with the teacup, but Bon Nam intervened just in time to prevent her from doing so, and they both left. Meanwhile, Ha Jae Yi was also diligently searching for Bon No-hein-ju's residence to confirm her identity. When she arrived at the location, she found Sang Pit already there, who had discovered that Sang Pit had been keeping this information from her. She was furious and went to confront Cha Moon-suk. Upon meeting Cha Moon-suk, Jae Yi questioned her about her mother's whereabouts, but Cha Moon-suk pretended not to know and claimed that her mother had disappeared 18 years ago. Under continuous pressure from Jae Yi, Cha Moon-suk called security to escort her out. At that moment, Sang Pit also arrived and pulled her away. Outside, Jae Yi accused him of hiding this information from her, believing that he was exploiting her mother's desire for revenge. Jae Yi had lost all trust in Sang Pit at this point. On the rooftop of an old building, An Oh-ju and Bon Nam Soon-ya secretly meet. Bon Nam Soon-ya agrees to help An Oh-ju in his mission to recover the money and reminds him of the events from 18 years ago. She also suggests that when they are done dealing with An Oh-ju, Cha Moon-suk's next target will be her. Meanwhile, Sang Pit is monitoring news about Ha Jae Yi's mother but has not received any updates. Prosecutor Chun enters and announces that they will begin investigating An Oh-ju's involvement in inciting murder. He also provides Sang Pit with a list of campaign donations received by An Oh-ju, raising suspicions about Sang Pit's involvement. However, Sang Pit refrains from getting directly involved and asks for the prosecutor's documents, which help him clarify his long-standing suspicions. The notebook that Sang Pit has was sent to him by Cha Moon-suk. She is using Sang Pit to eliminate those under her who know about her past misdeeds, especially An Oh-ju. She needs Sang Pit to exact revenge. Cha Moon-suk knows how to manipulate others and is using Sang Pit as her tool to eliminate those who know about her past actions, especially An Oh-ju, whom she wants to get rid of. Despite knowing that in the end, Sang Pit's knife will be pointed at her, she chose him because she wanted to eliminate An Oh-ju. She is indeed a cunning and ruthless woman. At this moment, Jae Yi is still standing on the street, contemplating. She decides to meet An Oh-ju to inquire about her mother's whereabouts. She promises to help him if he can find her mother. An Oh-ju is surprised to hear about her mother, as he had no prior knowledge of her. After Jae Yi leaves, Mayor An suddenly realizes that a witness from the case 18 years ago is still alive. In the meantime, Sang Pit arranges to meet with Scorpio, who is revealed to be Ying Guangyang. Sang Pit's younger brother, Mang Bei, had brought Guangyang to help Sang Pit, so he asks for his assistance. Jae Yi's mother, who is being held captive by Bon Nam, is also at the location where Mang Bei and Guangyang are present. Mang Bei has taken over An Oh-ju's position after the latter betrayed Cha Moon-suk. He has been secretly working against him for a while now. Sang Pit goes to the courthouse to inquire about Cha Moon-suk and Yun-ju but receives consistent denials from her. He stands firm and asserts that the previous investigators failed because they didn't know enough about her, but he won't let her off the hook. When Sang Pit returns to his office, he learns that Jae Yi has returned home, so he rushes to find her. At Jae Yi's home, she confronts Sang Pit but is overwhelmed with disappointment. She is no longer composed and locks herself in her room. Sang Pit tries to console her and urges her to wait a little longer for him. However, Jae Yi is no longer able to remain calm. She isolates herself in her room, leaving Sang Pit feeling helpless. An Oh-ju calls Bon Nam to inquire about the masseuse who works for Cha Moon-suk. Bon Nam is a double agent. She secretly exchanged information with Cha Moon-suk while deceiving An Oh-ju to cover up Yun-ju's actions. An Oh-ju had already been aware of this and considers this phone call as mere eavesdropping. Meanwhile, Cha Moon-suk continues to manipulate her daughter with malicious thoughts, teaching her how to subjugate others. Now is their best opportunity to sink An Oh-ju and hand him over to Cha Moon-suk. Jae Yi goes to Detective Kong to seek help. Finding her mother, who is a Thai national, is challenging. Detective Kong may be able to help with surveillance. He has a suspect, Ying Guangjang, who did not leave Ki Sung after being released from prison and is associated with him. Jae Yi returns to the law firm with the lead and persuades team leader Tae to arrange a meeting with Gwang Yang, Gwang Jang. Sang Pit arrives just in time and offers to accompany her to the meeting. He is focused on driving, while Jae Yi is visibly impatient. When they arrive, Jae Yi directly calls out Gwang Jang to confront him. Gwang Jang's attitude is far from gentle, and he engages in a staged argument with Sang Pit, adding to Jae Yi's frustration. Upon seeing this, Mang Bae, who is present, is not suspicious and believes Sang Pit's act. Sang Pit manages to pull Jae Yi away from the confrontation. Outside, Jae Yi does not get into the car with Sang Pit but instead walks away on her own, leaving him feeling dejected. Sang Pit asks team leader Tae to provide security for Jae Yi and informs him that he has to go. His task is to monitor An Oh-ju and report Mang Bae's movements. At the same time, An Oh-ju is also searching for No Yun-ju and Guan Dong to investigate their whereabouts. On the other side, Cha Moon-suk has just completed her interview, and she's in an exceptionally good mood. She instructs Ba Nam to close all the accounts under her name and transfer all the money to her, making Ba Nam extremely pleased. Afterward, they discover that the masseuse Ba Nam introduced is actually Jae Yi's mother. Ba Nam is terrified and begs for mercy, but Cha Moon-suk decides to see her daughter. They can only try their best to protect Kang Yeon-hee now. Guan Dong, bored with his life, sneaks into An Oh-ju's office to steal money just as Oh-ju returns to retrieve something. He gets caught, and Oh-ju punishes him. In reality, this is just a scheme. Once they finish dealing with Cha Moon-suk's accounts, Ba Nam reports to her. Cha Moon-suk is pleased, but her demeanor suddenly changes when Ba Nam mentions Jae Yi's mother. Cha Moon-suk pretends to be ignorant of the situation, and Ba Nam reminds her that Nam Sun-ya always protected her. On An Oh-ju's side, they have investigated Sang Pit's claims and are preparing for their next actions. Guan Dong faces no consequences and continues working for An Oh-ju. Ba Nam then visits Mang Bae and entrusts him with handling Yun-ju, acting as if she's giving orders to a subordinate. This act is closely observed by Cha Moon-suk. Cha Moon-suk orders Mang Bae to personally witness the elimination process, emphasizing its importance. Ying Guang Yang had already informed Sang Pit about this plot, so he and Tae Kong-soo arrive to rescue Yun-ju just in time. As previously planned, when they are about to proceed with Yun-ju, Guang Yang stops and waits for Mang Bae. At the same time, An Oh-ju arrives at the suburban bar where Mang Bae is present. Mang Bae is observing the process of throwing Yun-ju into the sea. Seeing that they aren't willing to comply, An Oh-ju brandishes a gun, prompting Guan Dong and Kim Nan go to split up and search. Guan Dong detects a sound from a container and immediately pursues it, but they are blocked. By the time they reach the outside, the container has already been thrown into the sea, seemingly lost. An Oh-ju, frustrated, departs. If he loses this valuable pawn, he will be in serious trouble. It turns out that Sang Pit had rescued Yun-ju ahead of time, swapping the contents of the container. The purpose was to create another apparent death for a witness in the case from 18 years ago. Even Cha Moon-suk is unaware of this theatrical performance, as she is still busy dealing with other matters to conceal her past. After ensuring Yun-ju's safety, Sang Pit calls Jae Yi, providing her with the address to meet her mother. Seeing her daughter reunite with her mother, Sang Pit and Tae Kong-soo leave to give them space. Beside her mother, hearing her talk, Jae Yi realizes that Sang Pit had planned everything out. She also learns about her mother's request to keep her hidden and away from her. Jae Yi doesn't blame her, she's just grateful to have finally reunited with her mother after 18 long years of separation. Back at the law firm, when everyone is in shock at Sang Pit's secretive actions, Jae Yi enters the room with an angry expression. She blames Sang Pit for keeping her hidden for so long, expressing her frustration. It seems like she's so upset that she doesn't know what to do and can only take out her anger on Sang Pit. Afterward, the two of them go to a corner to have a private conversation. Everyone assumes they are arguing loudly, but unexpectedly, they embrace each other. Following that day, Sang Pit arranges for Jae Yi's mother to temporarily leave and seek safety, as the real battle for survival is about to begin. For the first time, Sang Pit takes the Kum family upstairs to watch a movie using the projector. This time, the plan is meticulously laid out. The next day, Ba Nam is arrested for instigating murder, as the audio recording incriminates her. Kang Yeon-hee is there but can do nothing except watch her mother being taken away. After Nam Sun-ya is arrested, Sang Pit comes up with the next plan, but everyone is gathered, pretending to cry. After all, they have to make it look like Jae Yi's mother died, so they cry a bit. However, these people are crying like clowns. They should go to the side and listen to what Sang Pit has to say about the next plan. Sang Pit wants to use Nam Sun-ya as bait to trap Cha Moon-suk and sees the opportunity to catch the biggest fish. In the interrogation room, Nam Sun-ya keeps raising her voice with Detective Kong. Perhaps she hasn't fully realized the situation. Prosecutor Chun enters, unfazed by anyone. Even when Nam Sun-ya mentions Director Jang, he calmly shows Nam Sun-ya the video video in which she instigated Mang Bae to commit murder. After watching the video, Nam Sun-ya immediately starts accusing him of stabbing her in the back, blaming him for the crime. However, when asked for his name, Nam Sun-ja's secretary Nam remains silent. He can only request to make a call. Nam Sun-ya calls Judge Cha and asks for his help. However, Cha Moon-suk acts as if she knows nothing and hangs up, effectively abandoning her. Outside, Jae Yi takes her mother to find her father, and after 18 years, the family is finally reunited. This heartwarming scene is a testament to their happiness. Meanwhile, Sang Pit confronts Judge Cha, handing him the ledger that Cha Moon-suk gave him. He tells Cha that the ledger is missing the final page detailing Cha Moon-suk's fate. Cha Moon-suk reluctantly admits and challenges Sang Pit to finish it quickly. What she doesn't expect is the collaboration between Sang Pit and Jae Yi. To Sang Pit, the unexpected twist means her demise. Afterward, Sang Pit leaves, and he takes Jae Yi to the prosecutor's office to see Prosecutor Chun. This time, they are not here to gather information but to make Prosecutor Chun see the case in the right light. Today is the day of Nam Sun-ja's trial. Jae Yi sits in the funny office with her siblings for a while and then heads to the courthouse. The judge there seems to be quite lax and inattentive, yawning during the proceedings. It's almost as if he's making an art of it. Meanwhile, Sang Pit seizes the opportunity to negotiate with Nam Sun-ya, but she appears to be difficult to manipulate. No matter how much he talks, she pretends to be clueless. Sang Pit warns her that she has already severed her lifeline. At this time, An Oh-ju is still hiding outside, and Guan-dong is following him. Guan-dong suggests that he should escape with all the money now that he has the chance, but An Oh-ju is not the type to run away. He doesn't want to escape, he thrives on power and influence. Jae Yi arrives at the courthouse and immediately confronts Cha Moon-suk, the woman who murdered her mother. She becomes visibly angry, her eyes turning red after just a few words. She swears that she will bring Cha Moon-suk to justice, no matter the cost. Tae Kong-soo and Kum Kong, who are behind her, are taken aback by her exceptional acting skills. After leaving the courthouse, Jae Yi rushes to meet Detective Kong and tells him about everything that has happened, hoping he will help keep her secret. There's still a lot of work to be done. An Oh-ju tries to exploit Sang Pit's weakness by recording a video of Jae Yi and threatening to harm her, causing Sang Pit to lose his composure. After the call with Oh-ju, Sang Pit immediately calls Jae Yi, and luckily, today, Kum Kong and Tae's department heads are with him, which eases his worries. Kong Yi-and-hee visits Nam Sun-ya today. Nam Sun-ya still has faith in Cha Moon-suk and tells her daughter to find Cha and deliver a message. Kong Yi-and-hee tries to follow her mother's instructions and delivers the message, mentioning the ledger related to her father. Cha Moon-suk remains unfazed and offers Kong Yi-and-hee advice to become a good prosecutor obediently. The next day, Cha Moon-suk goes to visit Nam Sun-ya, completely severing her ties with her, leaving Nam Sun-ya fuming. Ying Guang-yang, the undercover agent, is discovered by Mang Bae, and Sang Pit, along with his crew, has to go rescue him. In a bar, Guang-yang is forced to kneel down, and Mang Bae is tormenting him. Suddenly, Sang Pit and his crew storm in, working together with Guang-yang's men to defeat Mang Bae's subordinates. While they initially planned to handle the traitor following the old rules, Sang Pit decides to use the law to punish him, a decision that Guang-yang agrees with. Returning to the law office, Jae Yi and Kum Ya come back and are surprised to see Sang Pit injured. But this time, she doesn't get angry, she's empathetic towards him, understanding that sometimes violence is necessary when dealing with people like them. She playfully punches him, showing her affection. The next scene shows the two moms advertising coffee. Jae Yi brings a cup of coffee for Sang Pit that's not too sweet but still aromatic. They discuss Judge Hong and the middleman who relayed messages between Cha Moon-suk and the assemblyman. Sang Pit wants to take down Judge Hong so that Cha Moon-suk can handle the case, leading to her downfall while wearing a judge's robe. Jae Yi will continue to gather information on Judge Hong. That evening, Nam Sun-ya in prison thinks it over and ultimately decides to choose Sang Pit. Late at night, she bangs on the door to call her daughter. The next morning, Kong Yi-and-hee brings the ledger to Sang Pit, who promises not to let Nam take the blame for more or less than what she deserves. What Nam did, she should answer for it. Yi-and-hee knows that her mother's decision is the lesser of two evils and doesn't say anything. Inside the ledger, there's no mention of Cha Moon-suk's name. It turns out this was just bait. Next is to negotiate a real deal with her. However, no matter what she does, the moment she asks her daughter to deliver the ledger to Sang Pit is the moment she gets caught. Prosecutor Jang, fearing for Cha Moon-suk's safety, arranged tight security around her and even gifted her a personal firearm. He's meticulous. Sang Pit meets Nam Sun-ya in prison, and the two of them sign the papers, considering the agreement complete. After leaving the prison, Sang Pit and Jae Yi go to find Prosecutor Chun, a dear friend. Their meeting is quite intriguing. Sang Pit ends up in a fight with his gang members and gets arrested. Prosecutor Chun is assigned to interrogate him. It's an amusing situation where a law school graduate and a seasoned prosecutor bicker. Their connection from Seoul to Kisung is still there, and it's unclear whether it's fate or just a coincidence. Seeing Sang Pit, Prosecutor Chun immediately has a headache. Hearing that Sang Pit is Nam Sun-ja's lawyer surprises surprises him even more. Sang Pit doesn't reveal any information but just tells him to be prepared mentally. After leaving the prosecutor's office, Jae Yi goes straight to Kum Ya. She is tracking Judge Hong, and this surveillance reveals the complicated love life of Judge Hong, who finally manages to get back together with his former lover, providing her with grounds for a lawsuit. Ji Yoon-do, a lawyer, finishes his run and is then caught by An Oh-ju and Gwang Dong. They brutally beat him and send photos to Judge Hong as a warning about the price of betrayal. Meanwhile, Cha Moon-sook learns that Sang Pit has become Nam Sun-ja's lawyer. That evening, she goes to find him, thinking that he is doing something crazy by defending Nam Sun-ya, the one who ordered the killing of Jae Yi's mother. Sang Pit clarifies that instead of calling it a defense, he prefers to call it a judgment. He will pass the judgment on her. Before the trial begins, following his usual style, Sang Pit requests that the judge avoids his gaze. Next, he presents evidence of Judge Hong buying a 3 billion won house for 100 million won. He makes it clear that no matter how well they defend the case, they can't win unless they can gift the judge a house of such value. Seeing that the situation is very clear, the prosecutor also requests that the judge avoid his gaze. At the same time, Jae Yi receives a call from An Oh-ju, who says he has evidence implicating Cha Moon-sook and instructs her to come and get it. She disappears right after the trial is halted because of the judge. While Sang Pit is being threatened by An Oh-ju, Jae Yi is held in check by Gwang Dong. When he momentarily loses focus, she manages to knock him down. An Oh-ju threatens Sang Pit with a gun, but just as he's about to pull the trigger, Jae Yi appears. He stops, and she takes off Sang Pit's jacket to reveal the ledger Cha Moon-sook sent him. She throws it to An Oh-ju, who reads it and learns of Cha Moon-sook's plot. Sang Pit then negotiates with An Oh-ju. He tells him that instead of fighting, there is a way to eliminate Cha Moon-sook. An Oh-ju takes some time to think and then removes all the bullets from his gun, leaving only one. He finally agrees to cooperate. An Oh-ju plays a dangerous game of Russian roulette with Gwang Dong, almost getting himself killed, but then he concedes to Sang Pit's terms. Sang Pit wants An Oh-ju to testify, and in return, he will help him get a reduced sentence. That's the best option because sooner or later, An Oh-ju will get caught anyway. There's no point in pulling Cha Moon-sook into this mess. However, An Oh-ju wants one more fight, and this time it gets even more dangerous. Jae Yi has a gun in her hand but can't pull the trigger. Ultimately, An Oh-ju is the one who gives in, and Sang Pit returns safely. Under the public pressure stirred up by the lawyers at Sang Pit's office, Cha Moon-sook ultimately has to appear in court for this trial. Those around her advise her to take on the case to use it as a stepping stone for her campaign to become the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. An Oh-ju, after serious contemplation, decides to visit Cha Moon-sook's house. He eventually discovers that the security there is extremely tight. He calls Cha Moon-sook, but she's fearless and even invites him over. Upon learning that Cha Moon-sook will be the presiding judge for her trial, Nam Sun-ya goes somewhat mad and summons Sang Pit immediately. Sang Pit arrives with Jae Yi this time. Initially, Nam Sun-ya appears quite cautious, but Jae Yi asserts that her target is Cha Moon-sook, not Nam Sun-ya. Sang Pit then employs a psychological tactic by revealing that the chief editor Hang will be a witness for the prosecutor. This successfully provokes Nam Sun-ya. Afterward, Sang Pit goes to find Mang Bae and summons him to court as a witness. However, this is just for show. The real witness is Gwang Yang, whom Sang Pit intends to rescue. On An Oh-ju's side, he calmly observes the trial proceedings and doesn't rush to meet Cha Moon-sook. Cha Moon-sook, on the other hand, manipulates Kang Yeon-hee's emotions, promising to help her mother but insisting that she must take all the blame. The future of the mother and daughter relies on this. Before the trial, Cha Moon-sook also visits Bae Nam and tells her that Nam Sun-ya values her daughter the most, but Cha Moon-sook never promised to take care of Yeon-hee. The trial begins with the prosecution presenting a video that suggests Bae Nam incited the murder. Next, the chief editor Hang takes the stand as a witness. He characterizes Bae Nam as a ruthless person, and the domestic staff will testify to this. When questioned by Jae Yi about why he maintained a 35-year friendship with Bae Nam, Hang remains silent. Jae Yi implies that he benefited in some way from being close to Nam Sun-ya. After several questions led by Jae Yi and Sang Pit, a heated argument breaks out between chief editor Hang and Bae Nam. Unfortunately, Hang inadvertently reveals some information. He mentions that he has written many articles for free for Bae Nam, which raises suspicions about the credibility of the witness. Gwang Yang finally takes the stand as a witness. He admits to carrying out the murder on someone's orders, someone who appears to hold a high position. Gwang Yang is arrested right after his testimony, and Cha Moon-sook begins to worry. However, for various reasons, Bae Nam hesitates to accuse Cha Moon-sook. Sang Pit realizes that something unusual is happening and takes action to prevent Nam Sun-ya from being removed from the courtroom. On Jae Yi's side, she meets with prosecutor Chun to persuade him not to indict An Oh-ju. She'll explain the reason after meeting with someone. Jae Yi takes prosecutor Chun to meet her mother and starts to recount everything to him. Meanwhile, An Oh-ju goes to Cha Moon-sook Sook's house to find her. She has arranged snipers and aims a gun at An Oh-ju. However, An Oh-ju seems unaware and confronts Cha Moon-sook. She tells him that Sang Pit won't help him that much. Her words make An Oh-ju reconsider. Later that night, Prosecutor Chun visits An Oh-ju and tells him that he won't cooperate with Sang Pit but will indict An Oh-ju himself with more substantial evidence than the photos on the internet. Sang Pit immediately calls An Oh-ju to inform him that the arrest warrant has been cancelled, and now it's up to An Oh-ju to act. That night, Nam Sun-ya receives a letter in prison, and everything seems fine on the morning of the trial. Just before the trial begins, Sang Pit asks Bae Nam to say a few words. Nam Sun-ya starts speaking but soon collapses. At this moment, An Oh-ju calls to say that he has reconsidered and doesn't want to testify anymore. He thanks for cancelling the arrest warrant. He plans to leave the country with his gang. However, he doesn't realize that Kim, Cha Moon-sook's assistant, is part of her side. Kim stabs An Oh-ju once. When Guangdong tries to intervene, he gets stabbed multiple times and is severely injured. Sang Pit senses something is wrong and rushes to find An Oh-ju. At this point, Guangdong is unable to fight anymore, and Sang Pit fights An Oh-ju hand to hand. Sang Pit wins, and An Oh-ju is only left with a wound on his abdomen. Unfortunately, Guangdong doesn't make it, but before he dies, he hopes An Oh-ju can survive until the end. The whole incident was orchestrated by Cha Moon-sook to prevent An Oh-ju from testifying in court. After losing everything, An Oh-ju decides to testify against Cha Moon-sook's crimes. Upon hearing that An Oh-ju hasn't been located yet, Cha Moon-sook immediately orders a search for him. Jae Yi goes to find Nam Sun-ya, who, feeling threatened by Cha Moon-sook, initially chose to avoid facing the truth. However, when Sang Pit arrives and announces that An Oh-ju will testify, Nam Sun-ya decides to stand with Sang Pit. An Oh-ju seeks medical attention for his wounds and then pays off the person who helped him, allowing them to leave. Sang Pit's team gathers at a restaurant, reenacting the atmosphere of the trial, and they discuss the situation. They wonder what will happen if Cha Moon-sook doesn't confess. Sang Pit and Jae Yi explain the legal procedures to them, and Sang Pit wants as many people as possible to attend the trial. Jae Yi plans to meet with reporter Yoo Jung-jin to discuss this. Afterward, Sang Pit meets with prosecutor Chun, who questions why they haven't pressured Yung Guan-yang to testify against Cha Moon-sook. Sang Pit's strategy is to let Bae Nam Sun-ya confess voluntarily. Chun Sung-bom has requested An Oh-ju to testify, but Sang Pit is concerned about whether Oh-ju will agree. Chun Sung-bom assures him that even though the arrest warrant has been lifted, there are still travel restrictions in place for An Oh-ju. This provides some relief to Sang Pit. Sang Pit plans to gauge Cha Moon-sook's behavior in court to decide whether Bae Nam Sun-ya needs to testify first. The scene shifts to Kang Yeon-hee visiting Bae Nam Sun-ya. She wants her mother to apologize and seek forgiveness from Cha Moon-sook. However, Kang Yeon-hee refuses to listen to her mother's explanations, insisting on staying by Cha Moon-sook's side. She believes that her mother's previous criminal record could affect her own career. Kang Yeon-hee decides to kneel before the judge to beg for Cha Moon-sook's forgiveness and to save her mother. Jae Yi meets with reporter Yoo Jung-jin and assures her that all the truths will be exposed during this trial. Jae Yi asks Yoo Jung-jin to invite several foreign journalists to ensure that the truth is not distorted during the trial. Meanwhile, Cha Moon-sook goes to the prison to visit Bae Nam Sun-ya. She tries to manipulate the truth, telling Nam Sun-ya that Sang Pit is lying. However, Nam Sun-ya doesn't believe Cha Moon-sook and tries to find a way to make An Oh-ju and her statements ineffective. At Sang Pit's law office, they receive news that Go In-do will testify as a witness. They plan to shift all the blame onto Bae Nam Sun-ya and An Oh-ju to discredit them further. Afterward, Sang Pit receives a call that appears to be very serious. Before entering the courtroom, Sang Pit and Jae Yi meet Cha Moon-sook. Today is Cha Moon-sook's final trial as a judge, but her demeanor remains calm as she leaves. Inside the courtroom, Yoo Jung-jin has successfully invited numerous foreign reporters, promising explosive news coverage for the day. Prosecutor Kang, seeing her mother in such distress, still doesn't want to distance herself from her mother. Cha Moon-sook continues to tightly control her daughter. Jae Yi tells Kang that today's decision in court could change the situation and free Kang from her mother's influence. Finally, the trial officially begins. The first piece of evidence is the video provided by the investigator Kang Jang-soo, showing Bae Nam Sun-ya ordering a man to commit murder. According to forensic analysis, the video is authentic and unaltered. During cross-examination, attorney Ha questions the origin of this video. Chief Prosecutor Jang Sang-ik himself provided it to the investigative team. Jang Sang-ik takes the stand as a witness but refuses to testify under oath. He claims the video was provided by an anonymous tipster and evades questions about the tipster's identity. Sang Pit suspects that the tipster must have significant authority to control Jang in this manner. In a previous trial, a witness mentioned a name that seemed to be someone of high rank. Sang Pit believes that this anonymous tipster and the high-ranking figure are connected. As the trial proceeds, they question Bae Nam Sun-ya, who admits to ordering the murder of the massage expert. Sang Pit acts quickly and asks Bae Nam Soon Ya a crucial follow-up question: did she carry out this action alone? Bae Nam Soon Ya admits that there was someone behind her who ordered her to do it, the same person mentioned by the witness from attorney Bong's side. She claims that the reason she's revealing this truth now is that she was threatened, and the person who scared her is none other than Cha Moon-suk. This revelation causes a stir among those in attendance. Cha Moon-suk requests that the cross-examination be terminated, but Sang Pit questions Go In-do next. Go In-do reveals that he was the legal advisor to former Mayor An Oh-ju and the Oh-ju group, so he knew about the illegal activities of Nam Soon-ya. He testifies that Nam Soon-ya intentionally approached Cha Moon-suk to carry out illicit activities to benefit An Oh-ju. He presents evidence of changes in the development plan for Golden City that benefited Nam Soon-ya and An Oh-ju significantly, with the market value of the land differing by at least 10 billion won during that period. Upon hearing this, Nam Soon-ya angrily stands up and says that Go In-do's land is adjacent to her own. At that moment, An Oh-ju arrives as a witness, and his intense glare at Cha Moon-suk reveals his deep hatred for her. An Oh-ju is a key witness that Sang Pit and his team have been waiting for. Cha Moon-suk invites the prosecutors and defense attorneys forward, and An Oh-ju, with Sang Pit's encouragement, agrees to take the stand. He begins by reading his statement, then requests a glass of water. An Oh-ju has been a loyal hunting dog for the Cha family since the days of Judge Cha Byung-ho. Cha Moon-suk objects, claiming that the defense is hindering the trial process with irrelevant questions. However, Prosecutor Chun argues that these questions are crucial to verifying the credibility of An Oh-ju's and Nam Soon-ja's testimonies. Sang Pit then brings up Mayor Lee Young-soo, Choi Dae-won, Woo Hung-man, and Choi Jin-ae, questioning An Oh-ju about Cha Moon-suk's orders to kill them. An Oh-ju admits that Cha Moon-suk was responsible for those murders and that he acted as her loyal henchman. Sang Pit submits an audio recording of An Oh-ju's phone call as evidence. Cha Moon-suk dismisses these as mere speculations based on current statements. She suggests that An Oh-ju and Nam Soon-ya might be colluding to shift the blame onto her. Sang Pit then shows a photo of Cha Moon-suk sitting in a car during the incident 18 years ago, challenging her claim that it's a fake photo. An Oh-ju confirms that he was in the photo, and the woman in the car was indeed Cha Moon-suk. The photo is genuine. Asked about the situation at that time, An Oh-ju explains that after Cha Moon-suk hit someone with her car and killed them, she immediately called him to handle the body. Seeing Cha Moon-suk's unrepentant attitude, Sang Pit presents No Yun-ju as a witness, the sole survivor of the incident 18 years ago who personally took that photo. At this point, Cha Moon-suk has no way to deny the truth any longer. She requests a postponement of the trial, but Sang Pit, along with everyone else, demands the truth. The prosecution, now that the disclosed connections have changed the nature of the case from murder to incitement, requests that the public trial be suspended. After the trial, An Oh-ju is arrested and taken away in handcuffs, while Cha Moon-suk returns to her office and destroys her belongings. Sang Pit rushes to the scene upon receiving news of An Oh-ju's escape. He approaches An Oh-ju, who contemplates his actions and expresses regret, stating that he was once a champion in society but has now become a coward who can only run. An Oh-ju insists that he should face the law's judgment. An Oh-ju then talks about how he was manipulated and used by those who played with the law during this time. Sang Pit, angered by An Oh-ju's involvement in his family's suffering for 18 years, briefly engages in a physical confrontation with him. However, Prosecutor Chun intervenes, emphasizing that if Sang Pit pulls the trigger, it means he has lost to An Oh-ju. Hearing this, Sang Pit manages to control his anger, lowers the gun, and decides not to stain himself with An Oh-ju's blood. An Oh-ju, seeking closure in his hometown where his parents are, requests that Sang Pit ensures Cha Moon-suk receives a fair trial before turning himself in. Cha Moon-suk also removes her judge's robes, and she is taken into custody. She destroys a photo of herself and her father. News reports highlight Cha Moon-suk's crimes, and individuals connected to her, like lawyer Go In-do and chief editor Ha, are arrested and taken to the prosecutor's office. On Sang Pit's side, a request for a retrial for Choi Jin-ae's suicide case is submitted to Prosecutor Chun, aiming to uncover the truth with these documents. Prosecutor Kong Yeon-hee visits her mother and decides to start anew. Sang Pit and Jae Yi visit Cha Moon-suk in prison, asking about her thoughts after withdrawing from the trial and becoming an ordinary person. Cha Moon-suk maintains a calm and defiant demeanor. She reflects on the past 40 years, witnessing the ugliness and deceit in people's hearts, believing that Sang Pit's actions were foolish. Sang Pit confronts her, stating that her ambition and deception led countless individuals to be in the defendant's seat, and that he only replaced those people to subject her to the law's judgment. Sang Pit asks her to seek forgiveness from his brother. Hearing this, Cha Moon-suk stands up and says that, ultimately, Sang Pit and the others will also have to forgive her because otherwise, they will live in suffering for the rest of their lives. Then, Cha Moon-suk leaves. Jae Yi and Sang Pit believe that Cha Moon-suk's obsession with power from birth has led her to remain obstinate in her views despite the circumstances. In the office, looking at the photo I took with Sang Pit's mother, I smiled gently. I remembered the time when Ms. No Hein-ju came to find my mother years ago. She asked about me and showed Sang Pit a photo of her daughter when she was little. They both promised that their children would bring the truth to light. Then, Jae Yi entered the room, and Sang Pit told her that when they were kids, they met at a stationery store. At that time, Jae Yi needed to buy something, but the store was closed due to a holiday. Sang Pit offered to lend her the item, but she shyly declined and ran away. Both of them headed to the courthouse together, where Prosecutor Chun recalled that Cha Moon-suk was still appealing her case, but she wouldn't escape a life sentence. Prosecutor Chun was now working in the Special Investigations Division of the Central Prosecutor's Office, a significant career leap. He proposed that Sang Pit and Jae Yi return to Seoul to work in the Special Investigations Division, and they agreed. When they were escorting Nam Soon-ya past a group of people that included Cha Moon-suk, she loudly requested that Cha Moon-suk greet her because she was the senior here. Sang Pit's team was currently providing legal consulting services against periodic evil deeds every 12 months. Their business was going smoothly and gaining popularity. They reenacted the scenes from the courtroom. There were mistakes and comedic moments, but the overall performance was successful in conveying the message that law isn't about physical confrontation, as they shouted the slogan, "Lawyers without law." After a long day of hard work, they all gathered for a celebratory drink to mark their resounding victory. They also used this occasion to inaugurate their law firm. There was an announcement about Sang Pit and Jae Yi returning to Seoul. The head of the Taeyong Group's legal department was preparing to take the law school entrance exam to follow in Sang Pit's footsteps. Jae Yi personally drove Sang Pit back to Seoul, and they were in high spirits, satisfied that they had achieved their goal of seeking revenge and restoring justice. Upon their arrival, Prosecutor Chun welcomed them and celebrated their return to the lawless capital, where they would target the unlawful activities of high-ranking officials. There were promising and exciting times ahead, and those who deceived the public from behind their positions of power would be brought into the light. They would use their martial arts-inspired style to kickstart their actions. The long-running drama of the Lawless Lawyers concludes here. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for other productions from our channel. If you have any more questions or need further assistance, feel free to ask.